Scientists discovered a massive ancient treasure. What they found will shock you. Hello, and welcome to the Ancient History Channel. My friends, have you ever wondered if the history we know today might not be the whole truth? Because deep beneath the ground, countless secrets still lie silent, waiting for the day they are brought to light. And the fascinating thing is, every time a shovel breaks the soil, it could uncover a story powerful enough to shake the entire world. You see, archaeology isn't just about digging up old things, it's like a journey back through time. Some discoveries leave scientists astonished because they don't match anything ever recorded in books. There are tombs where the bodies inside remain perfectly preserved after thousands of years. There are treasures once thought to be lost forever that suddenly reappear in ways no one could have imagined. And there are mysteries that only grow more puzzling the deeper we dig. By now, you're probably feeling curious, right? Curious about how ancient people lived, what they chose to hide, and why some of their secrets seem far beyond what we can even imagine today. Every discovery is not just an artifact, it's a piece of a puzzle that helps paint a clearer picture of the past, or sometimes makes that picture even more complicated. What truly draws people in is the uncertainty of what comes next. A coffin, a skeleton, or a massive hidden treasure? No one can say for sure, but one thing is clear. Every time history is unearthed, the world is forced to rethink what it once believed to be true. So, if right now, in front of you, there was a piece of land that had never been explored, would you dare to dig and find out what lies beneath? If your answer is yes, then this video is definitely for you. Now, let's dive in and discover what incredible findings archaeologists have uncovered for us in recent years. A non-human skeleton, found among an 8,400-year-old burial site. Just imagine this. One day, people excavate an ancient grave thousands of years old, and inside they discover not only human remains, but also a mysterious creature lying beside them. How would that feel? Chilling, right? But this isn't fiction, it's a real discovery that took place in Sweden, where history still seems to lie asleep beneath layers of cold earth. The story begins at an archaeological site in Ljungaviken, located in Sölvesborg. The area first drew attention in 2015, when early traces of an ancient settlement began to emerge. It took several years before archaeologists were able to excavate most of the site. As layer after layer of soil was carefully removed, a picture of the past slowly came into view, revealing a total of 56 different structures, from burial pits and hearths to perforated stones that were once used as oil lamps. Even from that alone, it's clear this was once a thriving community, not just a simple cemetery. But what truly left scientists stunned was something else entirely, a particular grave dating back as far as 8,400 years. Inside this grave, the primary remains belonged to a man from the Stone Age. At first, everything seemed fairly typical until they discovered another skeleton lying right beside him. And that's when the story took a truly strange turn. This creature was not human. Its skeleton was remarkably well preserved, suggesting that before it died, it had been strong and robust. So what was it? A wild animal? An unknown species? The answer shocked everyone. It was a dog. But don't picture an ordinary dog like the ones we see today. According to researchers, this was an ancient breed that has long since gone extinct, with a large, imposing build unlike any modern dog. It wasn't just a pet. It appeared to have held a special place in the life of the person it was buried with. Archaeologist Ola Magnell from the Blekinge Museum, who directly participated in the excavation, even stated that this discovery is unique in Sweden. Burying a dog alongside a human during the Stone Age was not common practice, suggesting that the relationship between the two may have been far deeper than we once believed. In addition, experts suggest that the dog may have been buried as a form of grave offering, similar to how ancient people placed valuable items in graves for the deceased to take into the afterlife. But in this case, instead of gold or tools, what was buried was a living companion, one that had likely shared a deep bond with its owner. Hearing this, you might start to wonder, was this more than just a ritual? Could it also be a story of emotion and connection? Of course, this wasn't the only remarkable grave. In other burials from the same period in the area, archaeologists also found many valuable items placed alongside the dead. All of these discoveries have turned Ljungaviken into a true archaeological treasure trove, thanks to the astonishing level of preservation of both skeletons and artifacts. Part of the reason everything remained so well preserved is because this ancient settlement lies near the coast. Over thousands of years, rising sea levels, combined with layers of sand and mud, gradually covered the entire site, unintentionally creating an almost perfect environment for preserving the past. It may sound mysterious, but it's also incredibly fascinating, isn't it? Human shadows, imprinted in the soil of a 1,400-year-old burial site, leave archaeologists chilled. Have you ever imagined that when an ancient grave is opened after thousands of years, what remains isn't bones, but only a trace shaped exactly like a human figure pressed into the soil? If not, then let's travel to a place called Oulton, in Suffolk, southern United Kingdom, where archaeologists have recently uncovered around 200 ancient graves dating back as far as 1,400 years. These graves belong to the Anglo-Saxon period, a crucial era in the formation of England. What's remarkable is that all of them were found almost completely intact, with no signs of disturbance or damage. At first, it might sound like a routine and uneventful excavation, but what they discovered inside was anything but ordinary. Among these graves, there were two main burial practices. One involved placing the body directly into the ground, and the other involved cremation before burial. However, it was the intact burials that delivered the greatest shock. As archaeologists carefully removed layers of soil, they expected to find skeletal remains, something that should exist in any grave. But instead, they found nothing. No bones, no physical remains of the body at all. All that remained was a hollow impression in the earth, perfectly shaped like a human figure, as if someone had once lain there and then simply vanished. Just imagine standing in front of a patch of ground where the outline of a head, shoulders, and body is clearly visible, as though it had been etched into the soil itself. How would that feel? Not just surprising, but deeply unsettling, right? So what could possibly explain such a phenomenon in ancient graves? According to Dr. Andrew Peachy, a representative of Archaeological Solutions Limited, the team responsible for the excavation, this phenomenon is known as a ghost grave. The name alone sounds eerie, but the science behind it is actually quite logical. Researchers explain that the soil in this area contains high levels of acidity. Over hundreds or even thousands of years, the acid gradually dissolved the bones of the deceased completely. However, during that process, the shape of the body was preserved as an imprint in the soil. In other words, the bones disappeared, but the shadow of the person remained, like a memory that time could not erase. Archaeologists also note that these graves belong to the Anglo-Saxons, a Germanic people originating from regions that are now Germany and Denmark. They migrated to Britain after the fall of the Western Roman Empire and laid the early foundations of what would become modern English society. Because of this, every site connected to them holds immense historical value. What makes this discovery even more remarkable is that beyond the eerie ghost impressions, many of the graves also contained valuable artifacts such as pottery and jewelry, still relatively well preserved after thousands of years. This reveals that the Anglo-Saxons practiced structured and respectful burial rituals, while also reflecting their material life and spiritual beliefs. For all these reasons, the entire burial site is now considered a true archaeological treasure, not only because of its scale, but also because of the extraordinary insights it offers into the past. 5,000-year-old mummy with intact skin and hair reveals secrets of an ancient civilization. Amid the dry sands along the coast of Peru, where ocean winds have blown relentlessly for thousands of years, archaeologists have unexpectedly uncovered a secret once thought to be lost forever. It wasn't gold or treasure, nor massive stone statues, but a tomb containing the mummified remains of a woman, a real human being, whose skin, hair, and even fingernails remain almost completely intact, despite having rested beneath the earth for nearly 5 millennia. This astonishing discovery comes from the site of Acombaro, an archaeological complex covering about 35 acres in western Peru. It was once an important coastal town of the Caral Soup civilization, one of the oldest civilizations in the Americas, which flourished from around 3,500 to 1800 BCE. This was not merely barren land, but once a center of culture, ritual, and power. The remarkable tomb was discovered within a large ceremonial structure known as Huaca de los Ídolos. According to experts, the tomb may have been constructed around 3000 BCE, meaning the woman inside had been laid to rest somewhere between 3,800 and 5,000 years ago. But what truly stunned researchers was not just its age, it was the extraordinary state of preservation. Archaeologists report that the woman had been carefully wrapped in multiple layers of cotton textiles, interwoven with reed mats, and most notably, a feathered textile made from macaw feathers. This feathered cloth is considered one of the earliest known examples of featherwork in the Andean region. But the story doesn't end there. Inside the tomb, researchers uncovered a collection of grave goods that sparked both curiosity and amazement: a finely woven headdress, baskets made from reeds, a decorated bone needle, a seashell originating from the distant Amazon region, and even a toucan beak inlaid with intricate beads. In addition, archaeologists found weaving tools, fishing nets, and more than 30 sweet potatoes placed within the burial. At this point, you might be wondering, who was this woman to be buried with such elaborate care? The answer seems to lie within the offerings themselves. All evidence suggests that she was not an ordinary individual, but most likely someone of high status in her society. Exactly how high remains uncertain, but one thing is clear. This discovery strengthens a fascinating theory. Women in the Caral Soup civilization may have held highly important roles, possibly even significant power. Notably, above the body, archaeologists also discovered a collection of funerary offerings, including bird-shaped vessels and woven baskets placed on totora reed mats. Everything was carefully arranged, as if the ancient people had thoughtfully prepared her journey into the afterlife. Currently, a multidisciplinary team of researchers continues to analyze the remains and artifacts. They aim to learn more about her health, diet, cause of death, and the origins of the items buried with her. Because who knows, perhaps from this 5,000 years sleep, they will gradually uncover even greater secrets about a civilization that once thrived brilliantly, only to disappear in silence. Until those answers are found, we can only wait patiently. Human skeleton with 13 stab wounds in a 1,300-year-old tomb, a mystery still unsolved. Have you ever thought that within ancient tombs, places we assume hold only the dead, there could be a hidden murder that was never recorded? If not, let's travel to the Xianzi Cemetery in Ningxia, a region that dates back to the era of the Eastern Han Dynasty. It was here, during an excavation, that archaeologists uncovered a highly unusual tomb. Inside, they found a skeleton in a strange position, not placed in a coffin, not laid out properly, but thrown into the entrance tunnel of the tomb, as if it were something meant to be hidden in haste. This tomb originally belonged to a wealthy family from the Eastern Han period, 25 to 220 AD. But what puzzled researchers was that the skeleton did not belong to that time. After careful analysis, they determined that the man had died between 640 and 680 AD during the Tang Dynasty, roughly 700 years after the tomb's original occupants. Right away, something didn't add up. At first, a seemingly logical explanation was proposed. Perhaps this was an unfortunate grave robber. In ancient China, especially after the Eastern Han period, tomb raiding for treasures was widespread. Even famous historical figures like Cao Cao were known to have used such methods to gather resources for war. So the idea that a robber might have been killed by accomplices and discarded in the tomb didn't seem far-fetched. But as experts examined the evidence more closely, that theory began to fall apart. Among them was Professor Qin Wang, who analyzed every detail of the skeleton and reached a chilling conclusion. The man was about 25 years old, physically strong, and showed no signs of living a hidden or criminal life. More importantly, his body bore a total of 13 stab wounds, scattered across the skull, ribs, and arms. Yes, 13 stab wounds. This was not a moment of rage, it was a deliberate act meant to kill. And it didn't end there. The position of the skeleton made the story even clearer. The man was lying on his back, his right arm raised as if trying to shield his face, a deeply human reflex when facing imminent death. This suggests that he did not die instantly. He resisted, he tried to defend himself, but ultimately could not withstand the fatal blows. And after it was all over, his body was thrown into the tunnel of an ancient tomb, a place no one would think to look and no one would notice. Researchers describe this act as hiding a leaf in the forest, a nearly perfect way to conceal a crime. No evidence, no witnesses, no historical records. Only a skeleton lying in silence for more than 1,300 years, carrying a story that was never told. From this, scientists reached a firm conclusion: the victim was not a grave robber, which means this was most likely a real case of murder, a crime completely buried from the flow of history. In the past, archaeologists have discovered many out-of-time skeletons in ancient tombs, but most were linked to grave robbing or accidental collapses. This case, however, feels different, like a secret deliberately hidden, a life erased without a trace. Even today, researchers cannot identify the killer or the true motive behind the crime, but at the very least, they have achieved one thing: they have given a voice back to the dead. After more than a millennium of silence, the story of this man has finally begun to emerge. So if it were you, standing before a skeleton marked by such a painful death, what would you think? A historical mystery waiting to be uncovered, or a reminder that no matter how deeply a story is buried, one day it will be told? Treasure hidden beneath a 3-ton coffin. Grave robbers dug 9 times but never reached the truth. Have you ever thought that the most valuable thing might be right in front of you, but because it seems so obvious, no one bothers to notice? It sounds unlikely, right? But this actually happened in real life, at an ancient tomb in Shanxi, China, a region famous for some of the most extraordinary archaeological discoveries. Back in the 1960s in Xi'an, a group of workers accidentally uncovered an ancient tomb while on the job. In a place like Shanxi, this wasn't entirely unusual, so they didn't panic. Instead, they quickly reported it to the cultural authorities. Soon after, an archaeological team was sent in, beginning the journey to uncover a secret that had lain undisturbed for over 1,000 years. After initial surveys, experts identified the tomb as dating back to the Tang Dynasty, a time when people of status were often buried with numerous valuable grave goods. And as you know, items that might have seemed ordinary in ancient times can become priceless treasures after thousands of years. Naturally, many assumed this tomb would contain significant riches, but reality turned out to be very different. As they dug deeper, the archaeologists discovered 9 holes of various sizes, clear evidence that the tomb had already been looted multiple times. In other words, it had been visited by grave robbers again and again. With that many intrusions, it seemed likely that anything of value had long since been taken, leaving behind nothing but an empty shell. And yet, when they carefully examined the interior, something felt off. There were no signs of chaotic digging, no broken fragments, no traces of artifacts being removed. In the nearly empty space, only one object remained: a massive stone coffin weighing about 3 tons, approximately 6,600 pounds, standing silent and unmoved. If you were there, you might have felt discouraged, thinking, "That's it, everything's gone." But the archaeologists didn't give up so easily. They sensed something wasn't quite right and decided to investigate further. Then they made a decision that, in hindsight, proved incredibly fortunate: to move the stone coffin from its original position. Of course, this was no simple task. A 3-ton stone block isn't something you can just lift on a whim. But as soon as the coffin was finally raised, a hidden space beneath it slowly came into view. And in that moment, everything changed. The real treasure had been there all along, hidden directly underneath. Not just a few scattered items, but an entire cache of ancient artifacts carefully concealed. In total, 870 objects were discovered. Among the most remarkable were pieces of Tang Sankai, a distinctive tricolored glazed pottery from the Tang Dynasty, once considered the pinnacle of ceramic craftsmanship in ancient China. And here's the fascinating part. Generations of grave robbers had dug through the tomb, carving out 9 separate entry points, yet every single one of them left empty-handed. Not because they lacked skill, but because they overlooked the most obvious object in the room, the massive stone coffin they simply didn't have the means to move. The tomb's owner, though unknown, must have been extraordinarily strategic. Instead of hiding the treasure in the deepest or most concealed location, he placed it directly beneath the coffin, a spot that was both simple and, given the technological limitations of the time, nearly impossible to access. Thanks to that clever design, the treasure remained untouched for over 1,000 years. And thanks to the persistence of archaeologists, this story was finally brought to light, helping us better understand the culture, daily life, and craftsmanship of the Tang Dynasty. When you think about it, life can be like this too. Sometimes the things we believe are lost are still right there. We just need the awareness to recognize them. So if it were you, standing in a place that had already been thoroughly dug up like this, would you walk away or would you keep searching? Feel free to share your thoughts below. 400-year buried treasure, worth hundreds of millions, suddenly blown out of a destroyed ancient tomb. Have you ever imagined that a high-risk, high-reward decision by a few hundred villagers could suddenly uncover a historical secret buried for centuries? It sounds like something out of a movie, but this story is completely real, and what happened next left everyone who witnessed it stunned. In 1966, in Gaowu Town, Anji County, Zhejiang Province, China, more than 200 villagers gathered to quarry stone from Laohu Mountain to build roads and bridges. At first, everything seemed normal, until they realized the mountain was made entirely of granite, so hard that even picks and shovels were useless. Faced with this challenge, someone proposed a bold idea. Instead of breaking the mountain, why not dismantle an ancient tomb located right there and use its materials? It may sound reckless, but this was no ordinary tomb. It was constructed from massive stone blocks, their surfaces smoothly polished and stacked into a hexagonal structure about the height of an adult. On top were 6 thick stone slabs forming a roof, and in front stood a large stone altar used for rituals. Surrounding it was an area resembling a stone workshop, roughly the size of 3 rooms, with 4 imposing stone lions placed beneath, like silent guardians protecting something incredibly important. Then the drilling began. Explosives were packed into the cracks between the stones. Within moments, a series of blasts echoed across the mountainside. The 6 massive slabs atop the tomb were blown apart, and debris scattered in every direction. But what happened next left everyone frozen in place. As the dust settled, an unbelievable sight appeared before them. Gold, silver, jade, and precious gems scattered across the ground, glittering as if someone had just poured a treasure across the mountainside. These items had been buried underground for hundreds of years, and now they lay right at the villagers' feet. Imagine being in that moment. Could anyone remain calm? Of course not. And just like that, the workers rushed forward, grabbing as many valuable items as they could. But the excitement didn't last long. The incident quickly reached the authorities. A specialized team from the Cultural Heritage Bureau was immediately dispatched to the site, recovering the artifacts and requiring locals to return anything they had taken. After examination, experts identified a total of 47 valuable relics, 5 gold items, 23 silver pieces, 5 jade artifacts, 3 gold folding fans, along with numerous agate and amber objects. All were exquisitely crafted, with some jade pieces classified as national treasures. The total estimated value reached at least 200 million yuan, tens of millions of US dollars. But that wasn't all. Inside the tomb, archaeologists also found 2 black coffins, one containing a male body, the other a female. At first they assumed it was simply a typical noble couple from ancient times. However, after deciphering inscriptions, the truth gradually came to light. The tomb belonged to Wu Lin, a high-ranking official of the Ming Dynasty who once served as a provincial inspector in Shandong. Born in 1485 and passing away in 1553, he was known for his integrity, upright character, and scholarly brilliance, counted among the 4 great scholars of his time. Notably, he retired at the age of 63, weary of political struggles, and returned to his hometown to live a simple life until his death. Which raises a puzzling question. How could someone who lived so modestly end up in a tomb filled with such immense wealth? The answer lies with his sons. All 4 of them were accomplished scholars who held high-ranking positions in the imperial court and were favored by the Jiajing emperor. They received generous rewards of gold and silver from the emperor, and it was they who used those riches to rebuild their father's tomb, making it grand and imposing and filling it with precious treasures. To protect it from grave robbers, they carefully sealed the tomb with enormous stone blocks, believing it to be impenetrable. And for over 400 years it was. Until, in a twist of fate, that very protection was shattered in mere minutes by explosives. When you think about it, it's both astonishing and unsettling. A treasure thought to be lost forever was suddenly brought back to light, triggered by nothing more than a very ordinary human decision. An ossuary reveals the life and death of Jesus. The story takes place just before Easter in 2017. At that time, the Israel Antiquities Authority captured widespread media attention when it opened, for the first time, a facility known as the National Treasures Warehouse. This wasn't an ordinary museum. It was a vast underground storage space covering about 53,800 square feet, located in Beit Shemesh, about 19 miles west of Jerusalem. Inside were thousands of artifacts collected from the Holy Land, a region closely tied to the life of Jesus Christ more than 2,000 years ago. And among all those priceless objects, one item immediately drew everyone's attention: an ancient ossuary, a bone box engraved with the name Yeshua, which is Jesus in ancient Hebrew. Hearing this, many people, including journalists at the time, wondered, could this be a clue to the final resting place of Jesus? But the reality is far more complex. Archaeologists quickly explained that around 2,000 years ago, the name Jesus was actually quite common in the Holy Land. In fact, about 30 other ossuaries bearing the same name have been discovered. In other words, the presence of the name alone does not mean it belonged to the Jesus we know. So the question becomes, if it's not direct evidence, why are these artifacts still considered so important? According to Gideon Avni, head of archaeology at the Israel Antiquities Authority, the answer lies in perspective. He explains that while there may be no definitive physical evidence of Jesus himself, these discoveries help scientists reconstruct a more realistic picture of his life and death. Simply put, they may not have found him, but they are beginning to understand the world he lived in. One of the most striking examples is a replica of the heel bone of a man named Yehohanan, who was executed by crucifixion in the 1st century. The bone still bears the mark of an iron nail driven through it. From this, archaeologists have been able to better understand how victims were executed. The feet were nailed separately, rather than together as often depicted in traditional religious imagery. And according to Avni, it's very possible that Jesus suffered a similar form of execution. Beyond that, the collection also includes a large carved stone depicting the Second Temple, a sacred structure that once stood in Jerusalem. What makes this artifact especially significant is that it was discovered in an ancient synagogue along the Sea of Galilee, a place where archaeologists believe Jesus once preached. Small details like these may seem minor, but together they form a vivid picture of the journey of a man who changed the course of human history. And yet, what makes this story truly fascinating is a paradox. The more we search, the more we realize that history doesn't always leave behind clear traces. According to religious scholar Yiska Harani, the lack of physical evidence for Jesus is not surprising. At the time, he was simply one of millions of people living in the Holy Land, and not everyone was recorded in stone or preserved through artifacts. So perhaps the answer doesn't lie in ossuaries or inscriptions. As many scholars suggest, the clearest evidence of Jesus' existence may actually be found in his teachings and the profound influence he left on humanity. What about you? Do we truly need physical proof to believe in a historical figure? Or is it possible that the most enduring truths are the ones we cannot see? Share your thoughts in the comments below. 500-year-old mummy found wearing an intact official robe in China. A coffin had lain undisturbed for half a millennium, untouched, until one day it was unexpectedly excavated. As people carefully lifted the lid, they expected to find nothing more than decayed bones. But no, the sight inside left everyone stunned. A body, almost perfectly preserved. Even the official robe worn by the deceased still retained its shape, as if it had only just been placed there. Does that sound like real life, or something straight out of a movie? If you think it's fiction, then you'd be mistaken. Because this is exactly what archaeologists recently discovered in Henan, China, during the excavation of a tomb dating back about 500 years. The tomb itself was not grand or elaborate like imperial mausoleums, but it concealed a mystery that captured everyone's attention: the almost unbelievable state of preservation of the body inside. As soon as the discovery was reported, local cultural heritage authorities quickly arrived, sealed off the site, and stationed guards around the clock to prevent any disturbance. When experts began their analysis, they were able to identify the individual based on inscriptions found within the tomb. The man was Gu Pu, who served as a right censor-in-chief under the Jiajing Emperor during the Ming Dynasty. While not a widely famous figure in historical records, he represented the class of government officials during a turbulent period in Chinese history. Yet what truly amazed researchers was not just his identity, but the condition of his remains. After 500 years, the body should have decomposed completely, but in this case, it remained almost intact. Most striking of all, the official robe he was buried in had retained its structure, layer upon layer of fabric still visible, giving the impression that he had only recently been laid to rest. At this point, many people began to wonder, how could a body remain so well preserved for centuries? Was there a hidden secret in the burial method, or was it due to unique environmental conditions? The answer likely lies in how people of the past prepared for death. During the Ming Dynasty, burial practices, even for upright officials, were not overly extravagant, but they placed great emphasis on preservation. Coffins were often tightly sealed, limiting the entry of air and bacteria. This helped slow the decomposition process significantly. But the story doesn't end there. On Chinese social media, rumors began circulating that the tomb once contained valuable artifacts such as a ceremonial sword, fans, and other treasures, but that they had been taken before authorities arrived. It might sound plausible, since officials in ancient times were often buried with valuable goods. However, representatives from the Cultural Office of Taikang County quickly denied these claims. According to them, the absence of gold or valuable items in the tomb was completely normal. During the Ming Dynasty, corrupt officials were severely punished, so most chose to live modestly and were buried in relatively simple ceremonies. This detail, in turn, reflects the character of Gu Pu, a man who did not seek material wealth. And perhaps that's the most meaningful part of this discovery. The greatest value of the tomb does not lie in treasure or artifacts, but in the story of a person. After 500 years, what remains is not wealth, but the image of an official lying there, dressed in formal robes, as if still preserving his dignity and honor. Isn't that fascinating? The Griffin Warrior tomb with over 3,500 treasures, revealing secrets of Bronze Age Greece. There was once an ancient tomb that lay silent for thousands of years, completely unknown, until one day, as layers of earth were carefully removed, an enormous treasure suddenly came to light, leaving the entire archaeological world in shock. Not just a handful of scattered items, but more than 3,500 valuable artifacts, gold, silver, jewelry, weapons, and armor, all contained within a single grave. This is the story of the famous Griffin Warrior tomb. The discovery took place in southwestern Greece, near the ancient city of Pylos, a region closely associated with the legendary Mycenaean civilization. Here, a research team funded by the University of Cincinnati, led by archaeologists Jack Davis and Sharon Stocker, made a discovery they likely never expected. On the very first day of excavation, while working near what is believed to be the Palace of Nestor, part of the ancient city of Pylos, they began to uncover signs of a tomb. At first, it seemed fairly ordinary, but the deeper they dug, the more they realized they were standing before something extraordinary. Within the first 6 months, the team uncovered the nearly intact skeleton of an adult male, estimated to have been between 30 and 35 years old at the time of death. But what made him truly remarkable was not just the skeleton, it was what had been buried with him. Archaeologists later gave him the striking name Griffin Warrior, and that name was no coincidence. Beside the body, they found an ivory plaque engraved with the image of a mythical creature, half lion, half eagle, known as a griffin. This symbol has long been associated with power and authority, suggesting that this man was far from an ordinary warrior. But what truly stunned the excavation team was the sheer number and quality of the artifacts surrounding him. At first, they uncovered around 1,400 items, but that number quickly grew to over 3,500 as the excavation continued. And notably, there was almost no pottery, something typically very common in ancient burials. Instead, nearly all the items were made from precious materials such as bronze, silver, and especially gold. Cups, vessels, and containers gleamed as if they had only just been placed there. According to Dr. Sharon Stocker, this was extremely rare, since most tombs from the same period primarily contained ceramic objects. And the discoveries didn't stop there. Among the treasures were a bronze mirror, 6 finely crafted ivory combs with delicate teeth, and various semi-precious stones such as amethyst, agate, and quartz. These details suggest that the man was not only a warrior, but also someone who cared deeply about his appearance and status. In other words, He was not only powerful in battle, but also lived with a strong sense of style for his time. Even more striking, archaeologists found gold cups carefully placed on the chest and abdomen of the body. Near the neck lay an exquisite necklace with two intricately crafted pendants. Everything seemed deliberately arranged to emphasize the status and power of the deceased, even in the afterlife. So who was this man truly, to be buried with such immense wealth? A king? A powerful general? Or a unique figure lost to history? To this day, those questions remain unanswered. But one thing is certain. This discovery has opened an entirely new window into understanding Bronze Age Greece. It reveals the wealth, power, and aesthetic sensibilities of people from that time, things we once could only imagine through books. And now, think about this. If a single tomb can contain such an extraordinary treasure, how many more secrets are still buried beneath the ground, waiting to be discovered? 1,200-year-old tomb, buried with gold in the living, reveals a chilling secret of the Köklü elite. Beneath the deep soil of a quiet archaeological park lies an ancient tomb that has remained there for more than 1,200 years. No one knew what was inside until archaeologists began to excavate it. As layer after layer of earth was removed, not only did gold and treasure emerge, but also a story chilling enough to send shivers down anyone's spine. This is the story of a tomb located in El Caño Archaeological Park in Nata District, Köklü Province, Panama. The tomb has been identified as the final resting place of a young chief who lived between 750 and 800 AD, a time when the Köklü culture was flourishing. But for the ancient Köklü people, death did not mean solitude. On the contrary, individuals of high status were often sent off accompanied by others. And that's where the story takes a darker turn. Archaeological evidence suggests that in Köklü culture, selected individuals, often wives or close servants, may have been sacrificed to be buried alongside their lord. As a result, many tombs from this culture contain not just one body, but an entire group of individuals. And the tomb at El Caño is a striking example, perhaps even more elaborate and mysterious than most. As archaeologists expanded the excavation, they discovered the body of the chief lying face down on top of a woman. According to experts, this may have been a common ritual practice in Köklü culture, carrying a spiritual meaning that we still do not fully understand. But that was only the beginning. Surrounding the central burial, they found the remains of dozens of other individuals, initially estimated at 31. In other words, not just one or two people, but possibly an entire group had been buried alongside this chief. What does that say about the power and beliefs of that society? And yet, even that wasn't what shocked researchers the most. What truly astonished archaeologists was the sheer quantity and luxury of the artifacts uncovered. Numerous gold objects were found, including belts made of gold beads, bracelets, earrings, and uniquely shaped jewelry depicting crocodiles and human figures. The discoveries didn't stop there. They also found earrings made from sperm whale teeth covered in gold, 2 gold plates, 2 bells, as well as skirts and bracelets made from dog teeth. There was even a set of flutes crafted from bone, a detail both unusual and thought-provoking, raising questions about ritual and music in ancient funerary practices. These objects were not merely signs of wealth. According to experts, they likely held deep spiritual significance, connected to beliefs about the afterlife. For the Köklü people, carrying gold and special items into the grave may have been a way to ensure a smooth journey after death. The head of the excavation project, Julia Mayo, noted that the initial images of the artifacts, from gold sheets and figurines to animal-shaped objects, reveal a culture of remarkable craftsmanship and rich symbolism. Yet the more they uncover, the more they realize they have only scratched the surface of a much larger mystery. Even now, the exact number of individuals buried in the tomb remains uncertain, with estimates ranging from 8 to 32 people. Further genetic analysis will be needed to determine how they were related, which means the story of this tomb is far from over. So let's wait and see what new discoveries experts will bring us next about this fascinating and haunting site. The Dragon Triangle, a terrifying mystery. Beneath Japan's waters, the world's second Bermuda? Lying silently in the depths of the ocean, Not far from the bustling capital of Tokyo, Japan, there is a stretch of sea whispered about by locals through stories with no clear explanation. It is known as the Dragon Triangle, or more ominously, the Devil's Sea. At first glance, the waters appear calm and peaceful, but beneath the surface lies one of the most mysterious and frightening locations on Earth, often referred to as the Second Bermuda Triangle. This is not just a geographic location, but a gateway to phenomena that modern science has yet to fully explain. In just a short span of 2 years, from 1952 to 1954, the world was shocked by the disappearance of 5 military vessels, along with more than 700 sailors while passing through this area. No distress signals, no wreckage. It was as if they had simply vanished into thin air. Even more chilling is the fact that such incidents did not occur just once. Between 1963 and 1972, approximately 160 vessels of all sizes reportedly disappeared under mysterious circumstances while crossing the Dragon Triangle. A staggering and haunting number. Compasses malfunction. Communication systems suddenly fail. Clear skies can turn into thick fog within moments. Massive whirlpools form in a matter of minutes. Everything happens too quickly, too abnormally, for anyone to react in time. And if you think this is merely the result of unusual weather, consider this. Some theories go far beyond natural explanations. One hypothesis suggests that beneath the Dragon Triangle lies a secret extraterrestrial base where advanced technologies are hidden, tested, and possibly used to prevent human intrusion. Others believe this region may be an artificial construct, part of a hidden agenda by an unknown force attempting to conceal the truth beneath the ocean itself. Another group of researchers points to intense seismic activity beneath the seabed, where tectonic plates constantly shift and collide, potentially creating extreme phenomena such as massive underwater vortices or powerful electromagnetic waves capable of disabling navigation systems. But one detail continues to puzzle scientists. The Dragon Triangle, the Bermuda Triangle, and even the Egyptian pyramids appear to lie along the same geographical alignment. Is this merely coincidence, or part of an ancient interconnected system we have yet to understand? Could there have once been a highly advanced prehistoric civilization that left its mark through these mysterious locations? Could these sites form part of a global energy network? There are as many questions as there are theories, and each theory seems to open the door to even more unanswered mysteries. Even the most experienced fishermen in Japanese waters are reluctant to venture deep into the Dragon Triangle. To them, it is not just a dangerous place, but a forbidden zone, a realm where gods and demons are believed to clash, where time stands still, and where people can disappear without a trace. For scientists, every expedition into this region is a test of the limits of human knowledge, and an opportunity to uncover fragments of truths hidden for centuries. So what do you think? Is this simply a coincidence of nature? An extreme weather phenomenon yet to be fully understood? Or is there truly something beneath those waters that goes far beyond anything we've ever known? Share your thoughts in the comments, because who knows, you might be the one to help unlock the next piece of this ocean's greatest mystery. Ancient artifacts. Inside a 2,000-year-old tomb that astonished scientists. You know, the world of archaeology is truly something special. Some of history's most remarkable discoveries didn't begin with large-scale expeditions, nor did they come from famous archaeologists. Instead, they emerged from the most unexpected, almost accidental moments. And to prove that, let me tell you a story that took place in Mancheng, Hebei Province, China. At the time, a military unit had been assigned to build a shelter tunnel into the mountainside. It was supposed to be routine work, something repeated countless times in similar construction projects. But during the process, they unexpectedly uncovered a secret that had been buried for more than 2,000 years. Here's what happened. The soldiers used explosives to break through the hard rock beneath the surface. After a powerful blast, the ground shook and a deep crater formed. But when they moved closer to inspect it, they discovered something unusual. Beneath the newly formed hole was another hollow space, one that clearly showed signs of human construction. At that moment, they realized they weren't just digging into the earth anymore. They had likely stumbled upon an extremely important ancient site. Without hesitation, they reported the discovery to the local cultural heritage authorities. Soon after, a team of archaeologists arrived to investigate and assess the situation. Following an initial survey, the experts reached a conclusion that stunned everyone. This was not an ordinary pit, but a large tomb dating back to the Western Han Dynasty. From that point on, the military construction project was immediately adjusted to make way for a full archaeological excavation. Everyone understood that what lay beneath could be an invaluable piece of history. As the excavation officially began, and layer after layer of soil and rock was carefully removed, the sense of amazement only grew stronger. According to the experts, the tomb was almost completely intact. The remains had not been looted and were exceptionally well preserved. There were no signs of tomb robbers, no evidence of destruction like in so many other ancient tombs discovered before. And all of this was thanks to its location. The tomb had been built deep into the mountainside, hidden so well that for thousands of years, it remained virtually undiscovered. Its remote and concealed position became a natural shield, protecting everything inside until modern times. Archaeologists were overjoyed because an intact Han Dynasty tomb in China often means one thing: countless treasures waiting to be uncovered. As for the tomb's owner, further analysis revealed that it belonged to Liu Sheng, the brother of Emperor Wu of Han, one of the most famous emperors of the Han Dynasty. Historical records describe Liu Sheng as a man known for his luxurious lifestyle, his love of wine, and his indulgence in pleasure. It is said that he had many children and lived a life filled with stories that have been discussed for centuries. Perhaps it was precisely because of his status that his tomb contained so many rare and extraordinary treasures. The artifacts brought to light left archaeologists in awe. From the exquisitely crafted jade burial suit to the gilded Boshan incense burner, everything reflected the ultimate level of luxury enjoyed by Han Dynasty nobility. But among all these priceless relics, one object stood out above the rest. It was the Changshin Palace lamp, an artifact considered a technological marvel of the ancient world. At first glance, it looks like nothing more than a beautifully crafted bronze lamp. But upon closer study, experts discovered that its internal design was astonishingly sophisticated. It features a system of tubes designed to draw in the smoke produced when the lamp is lit, trapping it inside the body of the lamp and preventing it from spreading into the surrounding air. Just imagine that. Over 2,000 years ago, people had already come up with a way to reduce air pollution in enclosed spaces. What does that tell us? Isn't that an idea that even many later civilizations might not have fully achieved? It is precisely this level of ingenuity that turned the lamp into a focal point for scholars around the world. Tourists from all over travel great distances just to see this treasure with their own eyes, a relic that once lay hidden in darkness for thousands of years. You see, from what seemed like an ordinary tunnel excavation, people accidentally uncovered a chapter of history that forced the world to rethink the incredible intelligence of ancient civilizations. Isn't that fascinating? Treasure of 10 tons of coins buried for 2,000 years inside a royal tomb. My friend, have you ever wondered what it would look like if one day people unearthed an entire mountain of money from beneath the ground? Not just a few scattered artifacts, but millions of ancient coins stacked in dense layers. A true treasure in every sense of the word. If you haven't, then come with me to Xinjiang district in Jiangxi province, China. Because this is where archaeologists accidentally stumbled upon one of the most astonishing discoveries of its kind. During the excavation of a tomb dating back more than 2,000 years in this area, experts uncovered an enormous quantity of coins, with a total weight reaching up to 10 tons. That number alone sounds almost unbelievable, doesn't it? But as incredible as it seems, it is entirely real. These coins have a very distinctive design. They are all round with a square hole in the center, a familiar form used throughout ancient Chinese dynasties. Not only their shape, but also the inscriptions engraved on their surfaces help determine their age, which spans from around 206 BC to AD 25, corresponding to the Western Han Dynasty. But what intrigued archaeologists even more than the sheer quantity was the identity of the tomb's owner. Based on multiple pieces of evidence, they believe this is the resting place of Liu He, the grandson of Emperor Wu of Han. A royal figure with a turbulent life, he once ascended the throne but was quickly deposed. Perhaps it was precisely this unique status that made his tomb so extraordinary, containing such immense wealth. Of course, the discoveries didn't stop at coins. A wide range of other artifacts gradually came to light. Among them were more than 10,000 items made of gold, bronze, and iron. along with bells, bamboo slips, and small figurines. All of these vividly reflect the luxurious lifestyle of the nobility at that time. Each item had lain silently in darkness for over 2 millennia, and now they tell the story of a once glorious era of history. Fascinating, isn't it? But what's even more remarkable is that over 5 years of excavation, archaeologists expanded their research across an area of up to about 430,000 square feet. They discovered not just 1, but 8 tombs, along with a burial site for chariots, details that reveal the grand scale of this entire complex. It is also very likely that Liu He's wife was buried in one of these tombs, forming a burial complex rich in royal significance. According to Xin Lixiang, the journey is far from over. Researchers plan to delve deeper into the site in search of even more crucial clues. Who knows, they might uncover jade seals, imperial robes, or even definitively identify each individual buried there. If you've studied Chinese history, you may already know that ancient China began using coins very early, around 1200 BC. These small coins usually didn't hold much individual value, but thanks to the square hole in the center, people could string them together into larger units of currency. This simple yet effective system helped shape an economic structure that lasted for thousands of years. Although initial estimates place the value of these newly discovered coins at around 157,000 US dollars, you can probably guess their historical value far exceeds that number. These are not just coins, they are evidence of an entire era. The Western Han Empire was once considered one of the most powerful and unified dynasties in Chinese history, and even today, its collapse remains a topic of debate. Some modern scientists believe that interactions between humans and the environment may have played a role in its downfall. Perhaps discoveries like this will gradually fill in the missing gaps in history. Every coin, every artifact uncovered is not just an object, it is a piece of a larger puzzle, helping us better understand how ancient people lived, thought, and built a brilliant civilization. What do you think? Or do you have a different perspective on ancient China? Don't hesitate to leave your thoughts in the comments below so we can discuss it together. Unique treasure found in a 2,000-year-old Han Dynasty tomb in China. There are places where, just by hearing the name, you can almost feel the presence of history. Quiet, mysterious, and filled with untold stories. And Luoyang in China is exactly one of those places. This land has long been known as a treasure trove of ancient tombs, where digging just a few feet into the ground can bring you into contact with a past that dates back thousands of years. But what makes this story especially interesting is that great discoveries don't always begin with advanced modern machines. Sometimes they start with a very unusual tool known as the Luoyang shovel. Yes, the Luoyang shovel. It may sound simple, even unremarkable at first, but what many people don't realize is that this tool is considered a true secret weapon among Chinese archaeologists. Thanks to its unique design, it allows researchers to identify different layers of ancient soil, helping them trace the locations of tombs buried deep underground. And in this case, it was precisely that tool that led to an astonishing discovery, a Western Han Dynasty tomb that had remained almost completely intact for more than 2,000 years. Now, you probably know that over such a long period, most tombs would have already been looted or severely damaged by grave robbers. Yet this particular tomb in Luoyang managed to escape it all, as if it had been waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. And when that door to the past was finally opened, the biggest question immediately arose: who was buried inside? At first, archaeologists could only make educated guesses based on the artifacts they found. They believed the tomb belonged to the Marquis of Haihun, a noble figure from the Han Dynasty. However, the problem was that this title alone wasn't enough to determine exactly which reign he belonged to. Everything remained unclear until a small but crucial detail was discovered. On a bronze artifact buried deep within the tomb, experts noticed a single engraved character, He. It may sound simple, but that one character became the key to unlocking the entire mystery. It confirmed that the tomb dated back to the reign of Liu He, a unique emperor in history who ruled for only a very short time before being deposed. From that point on, the true identity of the tomb's occupant gradually became clear. It was indeed the Marquis of Haihun, just as archaeologists had initially suspected. As the excavation continued, the deeper the archaeologists went, the more they found themselves immersed in a rich collection of artifacts. More than 100 bronze items were discovered and successfully restored, each carrying the distinct imprint of its era. These objects are not only valuable in material terms, but also serve as vivid evidence of the lifestyle, power, and political turbulence of a bygone time. Even more exciting is that in the future, all of these artifacts will be displayed in Nanchang as part of a special exhibition honoring the archaeological achievements related to the Marquis of Haihun. This means that anyone will have the opportunity to see, with their own eyes, objects that lay hidden in darkness for thousands of years. But perhaps what leaves the strongest impression is not just what was found, but how this tomb managed to survive. It endured countless attempts by tomb raiders, escaped the destruction of both time and human interference, and ultimately emerged almost perfectly preserved before modern scientists. By now, you can see that every archaeological discovery is not simply about uncovering an ancient object. It's like opening a doorway to the past, where even the smallest detail can change the way we understand history. And who knows? Perhaps right beneath our feet at this very moment, there are still countless secrets waiting to be discovered. A 4,500-year-old treasure revealed beneath a farmer's foundation. There are places that seem completely ordinary at first glance: a dirt road, a few old houses, life moving slowly like in any other rural village. But sometimes, it's exactly these quiet, unassuming places that hide secrets so great that no one would believe them. And the story in Sili Village, Ruicheng County, Shanxi Province, China, a small village you probably wouldn't think twice about passing through, is exactly one of those stories. It all began very simply. A man named Qi was just digging a foundation to build a house for his son. The work was nothing unusual, just dirt, rocks, and sweat. But with each swing of his shovel, he started noticing strange things appearing in the soil. Fragments and objects that didn't look modern, yet didn't seem particularly special either. If it were you, you might have brushed them off as ordinary debris and kept working, right? But no, those small, seemingly insignificant items were actually the first signs of a much bigger secret. The news was quickly reported to local cultural heritage authorities, but then it faded away. No one paid much attention at first. Until one day, when Mr. Qi continued digging a shelter, something unexpected happened. The ground suddenly collapsed. What could have been a dangerous moment turned into a turning point. From the freshly fallen earth, jade artifacts began to emerge. Deep green, cold to the touch, yet carrying the breath of thousands of years past. And just like that, the news spread like wildfire. What started as simple curiosity quickly stirred the entire village. Everyone wanted to know what was hidden beneath the ground. But as you know, treasure rarely comes without trouble. Wherever there's treasure, complications are never far behind. Sure enough, not long after, 3 strangers appeared, claiming to be archaeologists. They offered to help with the excavation, but in reality, they were secretly stealing valuable artifacts. Fortunately, authorities discovered the situation in time, intervened, and managed to recover some of the stolen items. Ironically, it was this very incident that finally drew serious attention from the archaeological community. A professional team from Shanxi Province was brought in, and this time, everything was handled properly. As experts began their survey, they realized that Ruicheng was far from ordinary. The region has a long history, potentially dating back to the Western Zhou period. Even more notably, Sili Village sits at the foot of Qingliang Temple, a sacred site historically associated with an ancient burial ground. Once the official excavation began, layer after layer of soil was carefully removed, and the secrets beneath gradually came to light. At first, there were only a few traces, then more discoveries followed. 1 tomb, then 2, and the number kept increasing. In the end, archaeologists uncovered a total of 262 ancient tombs, a number that left everyone astonished. And of course, it wasn't just the tombs themselves. Inside, there were countless valuable burial items. Jade artifacts, ritual objects, all crafted with remarkable precision. In total, more than 200 jade items were discovered, each reflecting the high status of those buried there. After careful study and analysis, experts determined that this site belongs to the Miaodigu Phase II culture of the Neolithic period, dating back approximately 4,500 years. a once fragmented ancient culture now revealed more clearly than ever before. And so, from what seemed like an ordinary foundation dig, an archaeological site covering nearly 54,000 square feet was uncovered. This achievement was later recognized as one of the top 10 archaeological discoveries in China, a powerful reminder that history isn't always far away. Sometimes it lies right beneath our feet. You see, the past is never truly gone. It's simply waiting for someone, perhaps by pure chance, to uncover it and let its story be told. And that's exactly why the ancient world never stops being fascinating. 2,000-year-old tomb of a Qin Dynasty queen in China. Deep beneath the earth, where light can barely reach, archaeologists have recently discovered an ancient tomb over 2,000 years old, one that holds a story both tragic and shrouded in mystery, dating back to the spring and autumn period during the Qin era of ancient China. The tomb is located at the Liujiawa archaeological site in Shanxi Province, China. Initially, the site only drew attention after a tomb robbery in 2016, but ironically, that very disturbance revealed something incredibly important. This area was once a major urban center of the Rui state during the spring and autumn period, and more notably, it contains a peculiar tomb labeled M3. At first glance, it might sound like just another ordinary archaeological site, but the deeper researchers dug and analyzed, the more they realized something was off, in a deeply intriguing way. In the Eastern Cemetery area, reserved for the elite, Tomb M3 sits beside two large tombs that have proper access passages. Yet this particular tomb has no ramp, no entrance at all. It resembles a sealed vertical shaft, as if the ancients intentionally locked everything inside, never intending for anyone to return. And yet, paradoxically, this entranceless tomb, turned out to be the largest and most intricately constructed of them all. As the excavation reached a depth of about 38 feet, roughly the height of a modern 3- to 4-story building, the team began uncovering details that sent chills down their spines. At around 26 feet deep, along the 4 walls of the burial chamber, there were exactly 9 evenly spaced niches, and inside each one lay the remains of a woman. Yes, you heard that right, 9 individuals. This indicates that the burial was not ordinary at all. It was a case of human sacrifice burial, a ritual in which living people were buried alongside the deceased, a practice once present among the Qin aristocracy. This detail served as a crucial fingerprint that helped researchers narrow down the identity of the tomb's owner. And there's more. Despite having been looted in the past, the tomb still contained 173 artifacts, with 96 items remaining in their original positions. From ritual bronze vessels and jade jewelry to objects made of bone, shell, and lacquered wood, all of them paint a vivid picture of the luxurious life of the ancient elite. However, one detail stands out even more. No weapons were found in the tomb. This might seem minor, but it's actually extremely significant. In noble burials, weapons are often symbols of power. Their complete absence suggests that the tomb's occupant was likely a woman, and not just any woman, but someone of very high status, possibly a royal consort or even a queen. Additionally, the jade fragments discovered inside the tomb add another layer of intrigue. They feature patterns characteristic of both the Zhou and Qin dynasties, especially dragon motifs with sharp lines and tightly structured compositions, a distinctly Qin style that is hard to mistake. This leads archaeologists to believe that the woman may have originated from the Qin state, even though she was buried in the land of Rui. At first, some scholars believed she was the wife of a Rui king, but as research continued, another theory gained more support. She may have been the primary consort of the occupant of a nearby tomb labeled M2, suggesting a political marriage between two states. If that is true, then this tomb is not just a resting place, it is living evidence of a fusion of power and culture. On one side, the traditions of the Ji clan of the Zhou dynasty, on the other, the strong identity of the Ying clan of Qin, all intertwined within a single, silent space. What's even more thought-provoking is the practice of human sacrifice burial itself. Once considered a symbol of supreme power, it was later abolished by the Qin state during a period of reform. This means the woman buried in this tomb may have lived during a pivotal moment in history, when old values were beginning to fade away. A tomb with no entrance, 9 lives buried alongside the dead, and an identity still surrounded by debate. So what do you think? Was she truly a queen of Qin bloodline? Or is there still a deeper secret hidden beneath the layers of earth, waiting to be uncovered? 14 skeletons and a 4,000-year Great Flood unveil the mystery of China's first dynasty. Just imagine this. What if the ancient stories people have passed down for generations, stories that sound almost like myths, were suddenly confirmed by science to be completely real? How would that feel? Hard to describe, right? The story of the Qin Dynasty, the first dynasty in Chinese history, is exactly one of those cases. For thousands of years, people in China have told stories about a catastrophic flood along the Yellow River. The waters rose uncontrollably, sweeping everything away and plunging people into desperate conditions. And in the midst of that disaster, a man named Yu the Great rose to lead the people, channeling the waters, opening new waterways, and saving an entire civilization from destruction. After his success, he was honored as emperor and founded the Qin Dynasty, the first ruling dynasty of ancient China. It sounds heroic, almost legendary, but the problem is, for a long time, no clear evidence of such a flood had ever been found. Many researchers even believed it was simply a myth, created to glorify Yu the Great, much like how other civilizations built their own legendary figures. However, everything began to change with what seemed like a very small discovery. In the year 2000, at an archaeological site called Lajia in China, scientists uncovered 14 human skeletons scattered across a single area. At first glance, it didn't seem particularly unusual, but the more closely they studied the remains, the more something felt wrong. These bodies had not been buried in any formal way. Instead, they lay in chaotic positions, as if death had come suddenly, so suddenly that no one had time to perform proper burial rites. 14 individuals, possibly a family or a small community, were caught in a disaster so sudden that they couldn't escape. At that moment, no one knew for sure what had happened. To find answers, scientists used radiocarbon dating techniques. The results were startling. These individuals had died around 1920 BC, and this is where things become truly unsettling. That time period almost perfectly matches the era when the legendary Great Flood is believed to have occurred, and also aligns with the estimated founding of the Qin Dynasty. Not only that, it also coincides with the time when people in the Yellow River region began transitioning from the Stone Age to the Bronze Age, a major turning point in human history. In other words, those 14 skeletons are not just evidence of a tragic event, they are physical proof of a moment that may have changed the course of history. From this point on, researchers began to reach a broader conclusion. A massive flood did indeed occur along the Yellow River, powerful enough to devastate a vast region. Faced with such overwhelming natural forces, people were forced to unite and find ways to control the water. And it was under these circumstances that early forms of social organization began to take shape, eventually leading to the emergence of one of the first known states, the Qin Dynasty. Hearing this, don't you feel like the line between myth and reality is starting to blur? A story once dismissed as fiction is now supported by concrete scientific evidence. Yu the Great may not just be a mythical figure, but a symbol of a real historical era, when humans first rose to confront nature and began building their own civilization. And those 14 skeletons, perhaps they are silent witnesses, resting beneath the earth for over 4,000 years, waiting for the day their story could finally be told. 2. 1,500-year-old skeletons reveal a shocking truth about China's legendary female general. You know, in our world, there are always stories, legends that at first seem like they're told just for entertainment or inspiration. But when people take the time to study, analyze, and reflect on them more deeply, they sometimes discover that behind those stories lies a truth that has been buried for thousands of years. And the story of ancient female warriors is one of those cases. To better understand this, let's travel to the vast grasslands of northern Mongolia, where the wind blows year-round and traces of history lie quietly beneath the cold earth. It was here that archaeologists discovered 2 skeletons in a tomb dating back about 1,500 years. Later analysis revealed that these remains belonged to women, and not ordinary women. Why do I say they were not ordinary? You might be wondering that too. The answer lies in the bones themselves. Analysis showed that these women had spent a great deal of time riding horses, so much so that their bone structures had adapted over time. Not only that, but marks on their arms and shoulders indicate that they were highly skilled in archery. a weapon that is far from easy to master, especially in warfare. In simple terms, these were women who lived the lives of true warriors. Just imagine it. Over 1,500 years ago, in a time when wars were constant and society was unstable, there were women who went directly into battle, faced danger, and endured injuries just like men. Does that surprise you? These two skeletons were found at the Arajan Gozgor archaeological site in Orkhon Province, Mongolia. Over the course of 4 years, researchers from California State University analyzed nearly 30 skeletons at this site. They identified traces of several different groups who lived there across different periods. The Xiongnu around 2,200 years ago, the Xianbei about 1,850 years ago, and later the Turkic people around 1,470 years ago. But what's remarkable is this: only the female skeletons from the Xianbei group, who lived during the Northern Wei Dynasty, show clear evidence of horseback riding and archery. This led archaeologists to believe that these women were not just supporting figures, but actual warriors who took part in battles. And this is where the story becomes truly fascinating, because the Northern Wei period, lasting from AD 386 to 534, is also the historical backdrop of the legend of Hua Mulan. According to the well-known tale, during a time of war, every family was required to send a man to fight. But out of love for her aging father, Mulan disguised herself as a man, took his place in the army, fought for many years, and achieved great victories. For a long time, many people have viewed this as purely symbolic, a legend without clear historical evidence. But now, with the discovery of these two female warriors, that perspective may be starting to shift. While we cannot say that these women were Hua Mulan herself, they do prove something very important. During that time, women were fully capable of becoming warriors, riding horses, using bows, going into battle, and surviving the harsh realities of war. In fact, one of the archaeologists directly involved in the research, Christine Lee, made a thought-provoking statement: "What men can do, women can do as well." And when you look at the physical evidence preserved in these bones, that statement feels less like an opinion and more like a historical reality. So instead of asking, was Hua Mulan real? Perhaps the better question is, how many women like Mulan once lived, fought, and sacrificed, yet were never recorded in history? These two skeletons lay silently for 1,500 years. Now, they are not just archaeological remains, but voices from the past, reminding us that history is not always fully told. And the legends we once believed were fictional may, in fact, be rooted in very real people with stories that have never been completely revealed. Mysterious chest and 2,000 relics reveal clues about the remains of the Buddha. While repairing an ordinary village road, something unexpected happened. Beneath the hardened soil, hundreds of ancient statues suddenly came into view. Digging deeper, workers uncovered a small porcelain chest containing something many believe may be connected to one of the greatest figures in human history. It sounds almost unbelievable, doesn't it? Yet this is a true story that took place in a village in Gansu Province, China. Back in 2012, during routine road repairs, local residents accidentally discovered more than 260 Buddhist statues along with a carefully buried porcelain chest. And it was this chest that left the entire archaeological community stunned. On the outside of the chest were engraved inscriptions, and it was the content of those inscriptions that truly captured attention. The text recorded that two monks, Yun Jiang and Zhi Ming, followers of the Lotus School, had spent over 20 years of their lives collecting sharira, the remains left after the cremation of Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha. Not only that, they also gathered teeth and bone fragments and solemnly buried everything on June 22, AD 1013, inside a shrine room within a temple. Hearing this, doesn't it give you chills? Because if what's inscribed on the chest is true, then what lies inside may not be ordinary ashes. It could be the actual remains of the Buddha himself, who passed away around 2,500 years ago. But the story doesn't end there. When archaeologists conducted a more detailed excavation, they also discovered traces of a structure that may have once been a shrine room, located right where the chest and statues were buried. This suggests that the burial was not random. It was a deliberate sacred space prepared with intention. And what about the statues? More than 260 statues were found, varying widely in size and form. Some stood nearly 6.5 feet tall, while others were just heads. Some depicted figures standing solemnly on pedestals. They portray the Buddha, bodhisattvas, arhats, and even figures with mythological elements. Interestingly, researchers determined that these statues were created over a long period, from the Northern Wei Dynasty to the Song Dynasty, spanning several centuries. This raises an intriguing question. Were all these statues buried at the same time as the chest of relics, or do they belong to different periods and were later gathered together? To this day, the answer remains unclear. Archaeologists, despite their careful approach, admit that they cannot definitively confirm whether the remains inside the chest truly belong to the Buddha. In fact, similar discoveries have been made before in China. Cases where relics or remains were found alongside inscriptions claiming they belonged to the Buddha. For example, a skull was once discovered inside a golden casket in Nanjing. So, faced with this discovery, the scientific community remains cautious. But whether it is true or not, one thing is undeniable. The strength of human belief in the past was extraordinary. These two monks spent more than 20 years traveling far and wide, receiving donations, searching, even purchasing relics, all for one purpose: to spread the teachings of Buddhism. So what was it that gave them such unwavering determination? And if what they collected was not entirely authentic, then where does its true value lie? In the physical objects themselves, or in the faith that people placed in them? Do you have your own answers to these questions? If you do, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. 1,500-year-old Buddhist temples hidden in the heart of the Taklamakan Desert. Have you ever imagined that a Buddhist temple over 1,500 years old could be hidden deep within the harsh Taklamakan Desert? In May 2012, archaeologists made a surprising discovery of this rare ruin, a place where endless seemed to conceal a cultural treasure from ancient times. When excavated, the temple revealed more than 3,000 relics, but the most remarkable highlight was its stunning murals, created in the Greco-Buddhist style, an extremely rare form of art after the 6th century. You might be wondering, what makes these paintings so special? According to archaeologists, they are clear evidence of cultural exchange between the West and the East, at a time when Buddhism from India was spreading into China. If you look closely, you'll notice details in the carvings, patterns, and colors that carry a strong Greek influence, yet still embody the spiritual essence of Eastern Buddhism. The result is a unique cultural symphony that is rarely found anywhere else. Archaeologist Wu Xinhua, who led the excavation, shared, "We have never seen murals like these before. They are vivid proof of the fusion of two cultures as Buddhism began spreading into China." Indeed, each painting is not just a work of art. It is a historical witness, telling the story of a time when culture and religion crossed borders and blended together. The excavation, which continued until June 2012, confirmed that the temple dates back to the Northern and Southern Dynasties period of China, approximately 1,500 years ago. This means it is one of the earliest Buddhist temples in China, helping answer many questions about how Buddhism was introduced from India into the region. Can you imagine it? In the middle of a vast desert where there seems to be nothing but sand and sunlight, there once stood a sacred place where ancient worshippers prayed and preserved timeless spiritual values. What makes the temple even more unique is its largest chamber, one of the biggest ever discovered in the Taklamakan Desert. With its impressive scale and sophisticated design, it is not only a religious structure, but also a valuable archaeological record, helping researchers better understand how Buddhism developed and deeply influenced Chinese culture. If you look carefully, the remaining relics, such as Buddha statues, plaster walls, and fragments of murals, all tell a story of human perseverance and creativity. Even in the harsh desert environment, ancient people were able to build something truly remarkable. Thanks to these discoveries, we don't just see art. We see the flow of history, the strength of religious belief, and the cultural connections that have endured for thousands of years. This 1,500-year-old Buddhist temple in the Taklamakan Desert stands as proof that history quietly exists, even in the most extreme places. It reminds us that with persistence, ancient mysteries can still be uncovered, and every relic, every mural, is an essential piece of the larger story of human civilization. If you ever have the chance to see these Greco-Buddhist paintings, take a moment to imagine. Thousands of years ago, human hands created them in the scorching desert, and even today, they continue to tell a story of faith, creativity, and cultural exchange that time cannot erase. 70-million-year-old fossilized dinosaur eggs discovered at a construction site in China. Have you ever thought that right beneath your feet, at what seems like an ordinary construction site, there could be a secret hidden for tens of millions of years? It may sound unbelievable, but that's exactly what happened when a group of workers unexpectedly uncovered a strange rock while digging, something no one initially thought would be so valuable. At first glance, the rock didn't seem particularly special. It was just a hardened mass of soil and stone with a few rounded shapes embedded inside. But when they looked closer, they began to notice some very unusual details. Oval-shaped objects neatly encased within the rock, with surfaces marked by indentations that looked like eggshells worn down over time. At that moment, a thought crossed their minds. Could these be dinosaur eggs? It might sound a bit far-fetched, right? But instead of ignoring it, the workers did something incredibly important. They immediately reported the discovery to a local museum and sent samples for analysis. That decision led to a discovery that quickly caught the attention of the scientific community. After careful examination, researchers reached an initial conclusion. These were indeed fossilized dinosaur eggs, buried approximately 70 million years ago during the late Cretaceous period, a time when dinosaurs still ruled the Earth. Take a moment to imagine that 70 million years ago. Humans didn't exist yet. Continents were still shifting, and massive creatures like dinosaurs roamed the planet as if it were their natural domain. And now, in the middle of a modern construction site, traces of that ancient world have suddenly resurfaced, as if the past itself were knocking on the door of the present. This discovery was recorded in Wuning, China, and it immediately drew the interest of paleontologists. Because each fossilized dinosaur egg is not just a stone shell, it's a key to understanding how these extinct creatures reproduced, how they lived, and how they behaved. What species did these eggs belong to? Under what conditions were they laid? Was this once a carefully protected nesting site, or simply the remains left behind after some ancient catastrophe? The answers may take time to uncover, but the discovery alone is already a major step forward. It adds valuable data to the field of paleontology in China and opens new opportunities to explore the ancient ecosystems that once existed on Earth. What makes this even more fascinating is how it all began, not in a high-tech laboratory, but with ordinary people doing everyday work. If those workers hadn't paid attention to the small details, if they had dismissed that rock like any other, this 70-million-year-old secret might still be buried underground today. So remember this. The next time you come across something that seems a little unusual, don't rush to ignore it. Take a closer look, because it might not just be an ordinary object, it could be a missing piece of history waiting to be discovered. Naturally preserved Colombian mummies that remain astonishingly intact. Imagine you are a gravedigger in a small, quiet, and peaceful town nestled in the mountains of Colombia. One day, like any other, you open the lid of an old coffin, preparing to relocate the remains according to local customs. But instead of seeing bones that have decayed over time, what appears before your eyes is a body preserved in an almost unbelievable condition. The hair is still there, the teeth haven't fallen out, and although the skin has dried, it still retains the contours of the face. Think about it. Would you even believe your own eyes in that moment? Probably not, right? But here's the thing. This story, which sounds like something straight out of science fiction, actually happened in San Bernardo, a small town in Colombia. Around 60 years ago, this place became the center of attention for archaeologists and scientists when a series of naturally preserved mummies were discovered. Bodies that underwent no artificial embalming process, yet have remained intact for decades. And the mystery doesn't stop there. These mummies were not preserved under special conditions. There were no chemicals involved, no ancient embalming techniques like those used in Egypt. So why didn't these bodies decompose like they normally would? When experts first came to study the area, they were stunned. They found not just one, but multiple bodies that still retained hair, teeth, fingernails, toenails, and even clearly defined facial features. Some of the bodies had dried out like leather figures, yet their overall shape remained almost unchanged. The existence of these mummies has led scientists to propose numerous theories, ranging from environmental conditions to the lifestyle of the local people. Can you guess what is believed to be the cause behind this unusual preservation? Surprisingly, this phenomenon isn't attributed to advanced technology or any kind of miracle. Instead, it may simply come down to two types of fruit commonly found in the local diet: guadala and balu. Residents believe that the combination of a dry climate, pure water from mountain streams, and a completely natural diet, free from chemicals and pesticides, has allowed the bodies of the deceased to become naturally embalmed without any human intervention. Even so, scientists have yet to reach a definitive conclusion. There is still no convincing scientific evidence to determine which factor plays the most important role. It's possible that the simple, nature-connected lifestyle of the people of San Bernardo decades ago contributed to creating a phenomenon that remains a major mystery to this day. Today, that small town is not only a resting place for the dead, but also a unique tourist destination, where visitors can see 8 naturally preserved mummies displayed in special glass cases. What was once a silent resting ground has now become a place that sparks curiosity and amazement in thousands of visitors each year. And perhaps most remarkably, thanks to these eternal residents, the town's economy has been revived in a way no one could have expected. So what do you think is truly behind this phenomenon of natural mummification? Is it an undiscovered biological secret, or simply a random gift from nature? Do you believe in science or in the power of traditional living? Don't hesitate to share your thoughts, because your perspective might just help shed light on a mystery that has puzzled scientists for more than half a century. Gold-covered mummified couple, resting together for 2,000 years in an ancient temple, a clue to Cleopatra's lost tomb? My friend, have you ever wondered, amid thousands of years of history buried beneath Egypt's scorching sands, whether there are still secrets lying quietly, waiting for the day they are revealed? And sometimes, could just a single small discovery shake everything we once believed we fully understood? If you've never thought about it, then come with me to the ancient city of Taposiris Magna, resting silently along the Nile Delta in Egypt. Because here, what seemed like an ordinary excavation turned into a story that sends chills down anyone's spine. As archaeologists ventured deeper into an ancient temple at the site, they came across 2 mummies lying side by side, one male and one female, dating back more than 2,000 years, as if they had entered eternal rest together. But what left everyone stunned wasn't just their existence. It was the layer of gold leaf still covering their bodies, shimmering as if it had been placed there only yesterday. You see, in ancient Egypt, gold wasn't just a precious material. It was a symbol of divinity and supreme power. Not everyone had the privilege of being covered in gold after death. So who were they? And why were they buried in such a sacred place? To answer that, researchers have proposed a compelling theory. These individuals may have held extremely important positions during the reign of Cleopatra, possibly high-ranking priests who played key roles in maintaining the power of the queen and her famous lover, Mark Antony. If that's true, then their burial here was no coincidence. It may be a sign, a message left behind from the past, hinting that somewhere very close by could lie the true resting place of the legendary queen. But the story doesn't end there. The tomb was not fully intact. Over thousands of years, water seeped inside, damaging much of the structure and the bodies. Yet the gold layers remained, and most notably, the image of a scarab, an ancient symbol of rebirth, was still clearly visible on one of the mummies. And that's not all. In the same area, archaeologists also discovered more than 200 coins bearing the name and portrait of Cleopatra. These coins are like scattered puzzle pieces, gradually leading us toward a much greater secret. Since the legendary queen took her own life in 30 BCE, the location of her tomb has remained an unsolved mystery. Centuries have passed, countless theories have come and gone, but none have been convincing enough. What's even more intriguing is that although this site has been under excavation since 2005, only a small portion of the vast complex has been explored. That means what we're seeing now could be just the beginning. According to Glenn Godenhoe from the University of Liverpool, despite being buried for 2,000 years, the mummies are still relatively well preserved, and the gold covering their bodies is clear evidence of their high social status. There's also another surprising detail. Cleopatra's image on the coins suggests that she may not have possessed the flawless beauty often portrayed in films, most famously by Elizabeth Taylor. Perhaps what truly made her immortal in history was not her appearance, but her intelligence and power. And now, with the temple where these 2 important individuals were buried located so close to Alexandria, Cleopatra's former capital, a bold hypothesis is beginning to take shape. Could it be that the Queen herself and Mark Antony are resting somewhere nearby? Kathleen Martinez, who has spent more than 14 years dedicated to this excavation, believes they are closer than ever to finding the answer. But unfortunately, despite all the relentless efforts, the tomb of this legendary couple still seems to be playing a game of hide-and-seek with the modern world. 2,400-year-old mummification workshop in Saqqara, revealing the secrets behind ancient soul-preserving rituals. It may sound distant, but this discovery was actually revealed not long ago. On May 27, 2024, according to AFP, the archaeological world was practically shaken when Egyptian researchers announced an extremely significant discovery at the Saqqara necropolis, a site already famous, located south of Cairo. This is no ordinary place. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and was once part of the ancient city of Memphis, the very heart of early Egyptian civilization. Now imagine this. In a land that has been excavated so thoroughly for hundreds of years, there are still secrets hidden, waiting to be uncovered. And this time, what was found wasn't just a small artifact, but an entire mummification workshop system. Doesn't that alone send a chill down your spine? Specifically, archaeologists discovered 2 mummification workshops, one for humans and one for animals, along with 2 ancient tombs. These structures date back around 2,400 years to the 30th Dynasty, a critically important period in ancient Egyptian history. This was where the bodies of the deceased were prepared for their journey into the afterlife, a journey the Egyptians believed to be deeply sacred. Going deeper inside, the research team found rooms containing large stone tables. But these weren't beds for rest, they were platforms used to place bodies during the mummification process. What's remarkable is that these tables were intricately designed, complete with drainage channels at the ends to handle fluids during preservation. Just hearing about it shows how carefully everything was planned. Surrounding the area, researchers also found numerous clay jars, used to store the internal organs of the deceased after removal. In addition, there were ritual vessels and many specialized tools, all serving a single purpose, to ensure that the soul of the deceased remained safe and intact as it journeyed into the afterlife. And that's not all. Another workshop was identified as a facility for mummifying sacred animals. This might surprise you, but in ancient Egyptian beliefs, animals such as cats, dogs, and even birds played special roles, often seen as embodiments of deities. Because of this, they were mummified with just as much care as humans. Then there are the 2 nearby tombs, each telling its own story. According to archaeologists, the first tomb belonged to Nehesut-Ba, a priest who served the gods Horus and Ma'at during the 24th dynasty more than 4,000 years ago. Inside, the walls are decorated with vivid scenes depicting everyday life, farming, hunting, and common social activities. Looking at them feels like watching a living documentary of ancient times. The second tomb belonged to the priest Menkaure. It was carved directly into rock and features images of the deceased himself, along with a plaster statue measuring about 3.3 feet in length. These details not only reveal the status of the individual buried there, but also reflect a powerful belief in the afterlife. All of these discoveries, whether the mummification workshops or the tombs, are like pieces of a puzzle that help us better understand how ancient Egyptians viewed life and death. And perhaps it is from places that seem cold and silent like this that we can most clearly feel how deeply people of the past valued the soul and their own existence. What do you think? 3,800-year-old Egyptian tomb lights up once a year. Hey, let me ask you something. If I told you there's a structure built nearly 4 millennia ago with no modern machinery and no digital blueprints, yet it can schedule itself with the sun down to a precise moment of the year, would you believe it? It sounds like science fiction, right? But this phenomenon truly exists, right in the middle of the Egyptian desert. This remarkable tomb is located near Aswan, within the ancient necropolis of Kubet el-Hawa, a burial ground once reserved for some of the most powerful figures in ancient Egyptian society. According to archaeologists, this site served as the final resting place for 2 high-ranking leaders of regional city-states, individuals who held significant authority and influence in their time. Unfortunately, over the centuries, tomb robbers arrived early and took nearly everything of value. Most of the treasures are gone, and even the mummies themselves have vanished without a trace. At this point, you might be thinking, so what's left to discover? If that's what you're thinking, then you'd be mistaken. Because the real treasure lies in the structure itself. Inside the complex is an ancient chapel, originally intended to house a statue of the governor or noble who commissioned the tomb. Strangely, however, the structure was never completed. Within the chapel, an unfinished statue still remains, frozen in time, as if the sculptor suddenly walked away and never returned. To this day, no one knows exactly what happened, but even that mystery isn't what truly stuns researchers. The real astonishment lies in a phenomenon that occurs only once each year. On the winter solstice, the day when the sun reaches its lowest point in the sky, something extraordinary happens. The entire chapel suddenly fills with light. This isn't a faint glow creeping in through cracks. It's a direct, powerful beam that illuminates the interior space clearly and completely, as if someone had designed a perfect light pathway thousands of years in advance. What's even more incredible is that this event does not happen on any other day. Only on that single day each year does the sunlight align perfectly and penetrate deep into the structure without deviation. So how could people 3,800 years ago calculate something with such precision? The answer isn't magic, it's intelligence. Even in ancient times, the Egyptians possessed a remarkably advanced understanding of astronomy and mathematics. They didn't just observe the sky, they understood the patterns of the sun's movement and applied that knowledge directly to their architecture. The entrance of the chapel was aligned at an incredibly precise angle, allowing the sunlight on the winter solstice to travel straight inside without being off by even the slightest margin. In simple terms, this tomb functions like a light machine, programmed thousands of years ago and still operating flawlessly to this day. In fact, the tomb was first discovered in 1885. However, it wasn't until the period between 2008 and 2018 that detailed excavations and scientific studies were fully carried out. Only then did researchers gather enough evidence to confirm that the structure dates back approximately 3,800 years, a number that forces anyone to reflect on the extraordinary precision it has maintained over such an immense span of time. You see, the more we learn, the more we realize that ancient Egyptian civilization left behind far more than just pyramids and the Sphinx. Hidden within their creations are layers of sophistication so refined that even today, we can only stand in awe. Fascinating, isn't it? 500-year-old wolf's body covered in solid gold, revealing a chilling ritual of the Aztec Empire. Recently, archaeologists in Mexico City stunned the world with the discovery of an ancient stone chest buried near the Zocalo, not far from Templo Mayor, once considered the sacred heart of Aztec civilization. But what truly sent chills down people's spines wasn't the chest itself, it was what lay inside. Inside was the body of a wolf, only about 8 months old, preserved in an almost intact state, and most astonishing of all, its entire body was covered with solid gold jewelry. Just hearing that already feels unsettling, doesn't it? But the story doesn't end there. Surrounding the wolf were 22 complete artifacts, from finely carved pendants to nose ornaments and even a chest plate made of thin sheets of gold. Everything had been deliberately arranged, not randomly placed. It resembled a ritual, one that had been carefully prepared down to the smallest detail, not something done casually. And that appears to be exactly the case. After analysis, researchers proposed a haunting theory. This wolf did not die naturally, it was sacrificed. After being killed, Aztec priests adorned it with valuable jewelry and even fastened a belt made of seashells around its body. Shells that had been brought from the distant Atlantic Ocean. This detail suggests that the ritual was far from ordinary. It carried deep and significant meaning. They then placed the animal inside the stone chest and covered it with a layer of sharp flint blades, forming a kind of spiritual seal. But perhaps the most thought-provoking detail is the orientation of the body. The wolf was positioned facing west, the direction associated with Huitzilopochtli, the Aztec god of war and a symbol of the sun. According to Aztec beliefs, wolves were not just ordinary animals. They were guides for fallen warriors, helping them cross dangerous rivers on their journey into the afterlife. In other words, this wolf may have been chosen to serve as a spiritual escort, a role of profound sacred importance. When all these details are put together, archaeologists believe this discovery may be directly linked to the reign of Ahuitzotl, one of the most powerful and ambitious rulers of the Aztec Empire. He was the leader who expanded the empire's territory as far as present-day Guatemala and was also known for conducting grand and sometimes terrifying religious rituals. So the question is, was this simply a standard sacrificial ritual, or does it conceal a deeper message left behind by the ancient people? What do you think the answer might be? As for me, the deeper we dig, the more we realize that what lies beneath the ground is not just relics, but fragments of an entirely different worldview. And this discovery doesn't just help us better understand religion, it also opens up a new perspective on how the Aztecs viewed life and death. Massive underwater mountain twice the height of the Burj Khalifa. In November 2023, researchers recorded an unprecedented discovery when they identified an underwater mountain on the seafloor near the coast of Guatemala, a finding that could completely change how we perceive the deep ocean. This is no ordinary mountain, but an ancient underwater volcano, with an astonishing height twice that of the world's tallest building, the Burj Khalifa, reaching about 5,250 feet. Can you imagine that? A towering Mahrut-shaped structure lying about 7,875 feet beneath the ocean's surface, covering an area of roughly 5.4 square miles, as vast as a small city hidden beneath the sea. This is one of many seamounts discovered using multi-beam sonar technology, an advanced method that allows scientists to see detailed images of the seafloor without having to risk dangerous deep dives. A 6-day expedition between Costa Rica and the eastern Pacific Ocean revealed a vivid picture of a region once thought to be silent, dark, and lifeless. So what makes this seamount so special? It's not just its enormous size. More importantly, it supports a unique and diverse marine ecosystem. The massive rocky structures provide an ideal environment for deep-sea corals to grow, along with sponges and a wide range of invertebrate species. In essence, this is a city beneath the sea where marine life can shelter, thrive, and evolve. Because of this, seamounts are not just geological formations. They play a crucial role in maintaining ocean biodiversity and contribute to the balance of the global ecosystem. This discovery raises fascinating questions about the richness of the underwater world. If just the waters near Guatemala can host such a spectacular seamount, how many more remain hidden across the planet's oceans? Experts estimate that more than 100,000 seamounts remain undiscovered worldwide. Each one could be home to strange life forms or hold secrets about Earth's geological history and environmental changes from millions of years ago. Did you know that underwater mountains are not only habitats for marine life, but also play a key role in the formation of valuable natural resources such as minerals, oil, gas, and even compounds that could be used in medicine? Studying seamounts can help us better understand deep-sea geological processes while opening up opportunities for sustainable resource exploration without harming fragile ecosystems. You might wonder why seamounts are still so little known and explored. The answer is simple. The ocean remains one of the last true wild frontiers of the modern world. With extreme depths, crushing pressure, and harsh conditions, exploring the seafloor requires advanced technology and significant resources. However, with rapid advancements in modern technology, such as multi-beam sonar, autonomous underwater vehicles, AUVs, and artificial intelligence for data analysis, we are gradually unlocking the door to these deep-sea mysteries. What makes discoveries like this truly remarkable is not just the evidence that Earth still holds countless unexplored secrets, but also the powerful reminder of our responsibility to protect the ocean environment. With more than 70% of the planet's surface covered by oceans, understanding and preserving ecosystems like seamounts is essential to sustaining life not only underwater, but across the entire Earth. You may also find yourself wondering, beneath those deep layers of rock and ocean floor, how many stories of history and geology are still waiting to be uncovered? Each seamount is like a natural archive, preserving traces of climate shifts, tectonic plate movements, and even ancient earthquakes and tsunamis from millions of years ago. Studying them doesn't just help us understand the past, it also helps us predict the future and warn us about potential natural hazards. The discovery of this seamount, twice the height of the Burj Khalifa beneath the waters off Guatemala, is an irresistible invitation for anyone passionate about science, exploration, and understanding our blue planet. It reminds us that no matter how advanced our technology becomes, the world still holds countless wonders, wild, mysterious, and waiting to be revealed. And who knows, one day in the near future it might be you, the one watching this very video, who takes part in the journey to explore, discover, and protect these hidden depths of our planet. 6,000-year-old temple in Ukraine. Have you ever wondered, before humans knew how to write or record history, how they lived, what they believed in, and how they expressed those beliefs? If you've ever asked yourself that and still haven't found a clear answer, then let's travel to a prehistoric settlement near Nebelivka in what is now Ukraine. Because here, archaeologists have uncovered a structure that helps answer those very questions, one that sparks curiosity the moment you hear about it. This structure isn't just an ordinary house, it's an ancient temple dating back about 6,000 years, long before the invention of writing. The temple itself is quite impressive in scale, about 66 feet wide and 197 feet long, built from wood and clay, and notably designed with 2 stories. Just hearing that gives you a sense of its size, doesn't it? The upper floor is divided into 5 separate rooms, each with its own distinct features, as if different rituals once took place in each space. Inside, archaeologists discovered 8 clay platforms, believed to be ancient altars. One of them contained charred sheep bones, a clear indication that animal sacrifices may have been performed there. On the lower level, a large open area was revealed, scattered with numerous animal bones and broken pottery fragments. Altogether, it creates a setting that feels both sacred and slightly unsettling, as if this place once served as the center of major ceremonial activities. But what really makes people pause are the smaller details. During the excavation, researchers found many fragments of small figurines. Some resemble human forms, but with unusual features, such as pointed noses like bird beaks or asymmetrical eyes. Looking at them might feel strange or even eerie, but to ancient people, these could have represented deities or spiritually significant beings. And that's not all. Decorative items made from bone and gold were also uncovered, incredibly small, less than 1 inch in size. Despite their tiny scale, they were crafted with remarkable precision and may have been used as hair ornaments. This suggests that the people of the Trypillian culture were far from primitive. They had a highly developed spiritual and artistic life. 2 researchers, Natalia Burdo and Mikhailo Videyko, from the National Academy of Sciences of Ukraine, noted that the floors and walls of all 5 upper rooms were painted red. This color wasn't just for decoration. It created a distinctly ritualistic atmosphere, as if every step taken inside carried a sense of reverence for gods and ancestors. By now, you can probably see that this wasn't just an architectural structure. It was a place for rituals, a place where people expressed their beliefs, fears, and hopes toward unseen forces. Scientists have concluded that the entire temple and its artifacts belong to the Trypillian culture, an ancient civilization that once existed in Eastern Europe. The name comes from a village where similar artifacts were first discovered, opening an entirely new chapter in the study of human history. But what's truly fascinating is that the more we learn, the more questions arise. Why did they build such a massive temple without a writing system? What did those strange figurines truly represent? And those sacrificial rituals, were they acts of devotion or attempts to calm some deeper fear? Perhaps the answers are still buried beneath the earth. But discoveries like this may be the key to understanding our ancestors, people who lived, believed, and dreamed in ways very different from us today. So what about you? What do you think those strange figurines are trying to tell us? Don't hesitate to share your thoughts in the comments below so everyone can join the conversation. Burial pit of severed hands reveals a chilling victory ritual of ancient Egypt. You know, in the middle of what was once a royal palace, the very center of power for an entire ancient dynasty, a place you'd expect to be filled with gold, treasures, or hidden royal secrets, archaeologists have recently uncovered something that sends a chill down your spine just hearing about it. Dozens of severed human hands lying silently beneath the ground. Not just 1 or 2, but an entire gruesome collection, as if someone had deliberately gathered them to tell a story history never fully explained. What's striking is that images of severed hands had already appeared in ancient Egyptian temple and tomb art, especially during the New Kingdom, roughly from the 16th to the 11th century BCE. But until now, those depictions existed only in paintings and reliefs. No one had ever physically encountered real evidence. That is, until these burial pits were discovered. Suddenly, what was once thought to be symbolic became a stark and unsettling reality. The story begins in 2011 when researchers excavated the palace complex of the Hyksos at Avaris, also known as Tel El Daba, in northeastern Egypt. This site dates back to the 15th dynasty, around 1640 to 1530 BCE, a time when the Hyksos controlled vast regions from Lower to Middle Egypt, even extending as far as Kusai, known today as El Kusaya. The Hyksos are often considered foreign invaders and the first non-native rulers of Egypt, though this interpretation is still debated. Within the palace courtyard, 3 separate burial pits were uncovered. Inside them were severed right hands. Initial analysis suggests at least 7 male individuals, and possibly even 1 female. That alone raises questions, doesn't it? Traditionally, women in ancient times were not thought to be involved in warfare, yet this discovery hints at a different possibility. As researchers from Germany and Austria studied the remains more closely, they proposed that the actual number could be even higher. At least 12 complete hands from adults were identified, and when accounting for partial remains, the total could reach as many as 18 individuals. One detail that stood out was how the hands were arranged, not randomly at all. The fingers were spread wide, with the palms placed face down on the ground as if someone had carefully positioned each one. If these had simply been bodies decomposing over time or remains scattered by floods or erosion, could they really lie so neatly arranged? This question led researchers to conclude that the placement was intentional, not the result of natural processes. It doesn't stop there. In 6 out of the 12 hands, a total of 8 wrist bones were still intact, yet there was no trace of arm bones. This suggests that the hands were cut off cleanly, likely using a method that was quick and efficient, but undeniably brutal. The research report also emphasizes that this act showed no concern for the victim's survival. The focus was solely on removing the hands, as if they were trophies. Even more revealing is the timing of the burial. These hands were placed into the ground shortly after being severed, while still soft and before rigor mortis had set in, a process that typically begins a few hours after death and peaks within 12 to 24 hours. This indicates that the entire process happened rapidly, with little to no delay. According to researchers, the practice of cutting off hands may have been introduced to Egypt by the Hyksos around 50 to 80 years before it appeared in hieroglyphic texts. Later, native Egyptians adopted the custom, particularly during the reign of King Ahmose, the ruler who defeated the Hyksos. At his temple in Abydos, relief carvings depicting piles of severed hands have been found, clearly symbolizing victory. So in the end, what was this? Punishment or triumph? If it were punishment, why place the hands in the grand forecourt of the palace, right in front of the throne room, where anyone entering could see them? On the other hand, if it was meant to display victory, then that location would be perfect for showcasing power and dominance. That's why many researchers lean toward the idea that this was a victory display ritual, a place where the victors used the bodies of the defeated to demonstrate their strength to the public, a form of power that is both direct and deeply disturbing, and perhaps a cold warning to anyone who dared to stand against them. Terrifying, isn't it? Terrifying. The Golden City awakens. After 3,000 years, Egypt's greatest secret begins to unfold. For thousands of years, on the arid western bank of Luxor, Egypt, there once stood a thriving city, a hub of power and production for an entire empire. And then, it vanished without a trace, as if swallowed by history itself. People gave it a captivating name, the Lost Golden City. What makes this story more fascinating than ever is that after countless failed searches, it has finally been found. This journey is closely tied to the renowned archaeologist Zahi Hawass, who was determined to trace the footsteps of this mysterious city. At first, his team wasn't even looking for a legendary metropolis. Their original goal was simply to locate an area connected to the mummification site of the young king Tutankhamun. But in archaeology, sometimes the greatest discoveries come from unexpected turns. In September 2020, when excavations began in the area between the Temple of Ramesses III at Medinet Habu and the Temple of Amenhotep III near the Colossi of Memnon, the team quickly realized they had uncovered something extraordinary. Beneath the sand, mud brick walls emerged, rising nearly 9 feet high and twisting like a maze. From that moment on, layer after layer of secrets began to reveal themselves. What they found was not scattered ruins, but an entire city, remarkably well preserved. Rooms still stood intact, containing ovens, everyday tools, and craft equipment such as spinning and weaving tools, molds for making amulets, clay seals, pottery, and even rings. Everything seemed frozen in time, giving the impression that the inhabitants had just left not over 3,000 years ago. According to Egypt's Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, this may have been the largest industrial and administrative complex of ancient Egyptian civilization in Thebes. The city is believed to have been built by Pharaoh Amenhotep III around 1386 to 1353 BCE, a period when Egypt reached the height of its wealth and power. What's even more intriguing is that the site is connected to several major historical figures, including Tutankhamun, I, and Akhenaten, the pharaoh known for his controversial religious reforms. This connection raises a long-standing question among archaeologists. Why did Akhenaten and Nefertiti choose to abandon Thebes and move to Amarna? And that's not all. Egyptologist Betsy Bryan, although not directly involved in the excavation, stated after witnessing the site firsthand that this is the most important discovery since the tomb of Tutankhamun. Hearing that alone gives you a sense of just how monumental this find truly is. The deeper the team dug, the more astonishing details they uncovered. For example, they found a large vessel with a capacity of over 7 quarts containing dried or cooked meat, along with an inscription indicating it was prepared for the third Heb-Sed festival in the 37th year of the reign. It may seem like a small object, but it provides precise evidence for dating the city and understanding its activities. They also discovered unusual burials, 2 tombs containing cow remains, and another holding a human skeleton with arms positioned to one side and knees bound with rope. These details are puzzling researchers as they do not match typical burial practices. What's truly remarkable is that, despite being buried for thousands of years, the site remains in an exceptional state of preservation, so much so that many compare it to a city abandoned just yesterday. After 7 months of excavation, only a portion of the site has been uncovered. Researchers believe that to the north lies a large cemetery, potentially containing stone tombs filled with treasures. But perhaps what makes the lost Golden City so captivating is not just what has been found, but what still remains hidden. Was this place completely abandoned, or was it later reused when Tutankhamun returned to Thebes? And was Akhenaten's decision to leave truly connected to this city? All of these answers still lie beneath the waiting to be revealed. So let me ask you, if you had the chance to step into that city, a place that once thrived over 3,000 years ago, would you see it as a historical treasure or as a doorway to untold mysteries? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's talk about it. Below. The mysterious Acombaro figurines that have forced scientists to rethink a series of long-held assumptions. Imagine walking across a barren landscape where dust swirls in waves under the scorching winds of central Mexico. Beneath your feet lies not rock or sand, but thousands of strange ceramic fragments, small figurines carrying a mystery that could overturn everything we think we know about human evolution. This is the unbelievable yet true story of the Acombaro figurines, a bizarre collection of more than 32,000 artifacts discovered in July 1944 in the town of Acombaro, Mexico, by a German merchant named Waldemar Hulsrud. What he found didn't just puzzle archaeologists, it made modern science uneasy. Because if these artifacts were proven authentic, they could challenge the very foundation of the theory of evolution that humanity has built over more than a century. So what makes these figurines so dangerous? Among the tens of thousands of ceramic pieces, many appear to depict dinosaur-like creatures, animals believed to have gone extinct around 65 million years ago, long before humans are thought to have existed according to current evolutionary theory. But it doesn't stop there. Some figurines seem to portray humans from various civilizations, ancient Egyptians, Sumerians, and even Caucasian Europeans, all appearing side by side, as if representing an impossible intersection of cultures and time periods that, according to established archaeological records, never had any direct contact. If these figurines were truly ancient artifacts, the implications would be staggering. Humans and dinosaurs may have coexisted, and human history could have begun millions of years earlier than what textbooks currently teach. Supporters of this idea have pointed to the figurines as evidence against Darwin's theory of evolution, while also using them to support alternative views such as creationism or the existence of lost prehistoric civilizations. concepts often considered outside mainstream science. In response to the controversy, several scientific efforts have been made to determine the true age of the figurines. Some estimates suggest they could date back as far as around 2500 BCE, roughly the same period as the earliest known human civilizations. However, even if that dating were accurate, the presence of dinosaur-like figures in the artwork would remain a profound mystery, unless the creators had somehow seen such creatures with their own eyes. But the story isn't that simple. To this day, no reputable archaeologist or paleontologist has accepted the figurines as genuine ancient artifacts. Many argue that the entire case is an elaborate hoax, carefully staged to attract attention, or even to fuel conspiracy theories. Some experts believe the figurines were actually crafted in the 20th century and deliberately buried to create false evidence. The problem is, no one has ever witnessed their creation, and Jules Rudd himself never admitted to any deception. That uncertainty keeps the truth suspended somewhere between mystery and skepticism. Whether you trust mainstream science or are drawn to unexplained mysteries, the Acombaro figurines remain difficult to ignore. Are they truly remnants of a lost ancient civilization erased by time and nature? Or simply a clever fabrication designed to exploit human curiosity and belief? The truth still lies buried beneath the dusty soil of Acombaro, waiting for a discovery powerful enough to uncover a mystery that has persisted for more than 80 years. What do you think? Is the truth being hidden, or is this just one of the greatest archaeological hoaxes of all time? As for me, I'm still unsure. If you know something about this case, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments so we can explore it together. Ice Age. Mammoth fossils. Around 200,000 years ago, a magnificent and mysterious scene unfolded in a region that is now near the town of Swindon, England. The massive skeletons of 2 adult mammoths, 2 juveniles, and 1 infant were uncovered, revealing a story never before told about a distant chapter in Earth's history. What makes this discovery even more remarkable is that alongside these remains, archaeologists also found stone tools used by Neanderthals. These prehistoric humans, with impressive intelligence and strength, may have hunted these enormous creatures, animals weighing up to about 22,000 pounds, not only for food, but also as part of their struggle to survive the harsh challenges of the Ice Age. And that's not all. This vast excavation site may still hold many more discoveries, offering crucial clues about a time most of us know very little about. The site is located within a former quarry, once home to giant Ice Age animals, such as elk with antlers stretching over 33 feet in length. These creatures were not only impressive in size, but also served as witnesses to dramatic changes in environment, climate, and interactions between species. It wasn't just large animals that shaped this ecosystem, even small creatures played a role. A species of dung beetle evolved alongside these giants, using their waste as both food and habitat. Seeds, pollen, and plant fossils, including extinct species, have also been preserved for hundreds of thousands to millions of years, reminding us of the rich biodiversity of a time when everything was closely interconnected. Archaeologists consider this one of the most important paleontological discoveries in Britain. One of the most extraordinary aspects of the excavation is the discovery of mammoth skeletons that are nearly intact, something extremely rare. In fact, researchers found that the very place where these mammoths lay is where they died hundreds of thousands of years ago. Nearby were valuable objects such as stone tools and shells, items that may have once been trampled under their feet. What makes these findings even more fascinating is that they not only help us imagine the lives of these giant animals, but also give us deeper insight into the lives of Neanderthal humans. The traces and tools they left behind reveal an important part of human history, showing how early humans faced and adapted to the extreme conditions of the Ice Age. Some of the skeletons even show signs of butchering, suggesting a direct relationship between Neanderthals and these massive creatures. Scientists believe the mammoths and associated artifacts date back approximately 220,000 years, a time when Britain was inhabited by Neanderthals during a relatively warm interglacial period known as MES7. Eventually, as the climate grew colder, Neanderthals migrated southward. The region then became a vast plain where both animals and humans once coexisted. The steppe mammoth, the largest of all mammoth species, first appeared around 5 million years ago and survived until about 200,000 years ago. These giants could weigh up to approximately 33,000 pounds, about 3 times heavier than modern African elephants. This highlights their remarkable ability to adapt to constantly changing environments. However, research also suggests that these mammoths may have died either due to a massive glacial flood or as a result of hunting by Neanderthals. All of these discoveries provide a deeper perspective on life during the Ice Age. They help us not only understand the existence of ancient animals, but also explore the complex relationship between them and Neanderthals, humans who survived and adapted in a world full of challenges. Their story is not just about survival, but also about how humans have learned, and may continue to learn, from nature in order to endure in an ever-changing world. Fascinating, isn't it? 800-year-old medieval mummy in a birch bark cocoon hidden beneath Arctic ice. In a land frozen year-round, where ice and snow blanket everything, just about 18 miles from the Arctic Circle, archaeologists made a startling discovery. Something that looked like a cocoon, but this was no silkworm cocoon. It was made from birch bark, and what sent chills down everyone's spine was what lay inside: a mummy from the Middle Ages. Yes, what you're hearing is real. This discovery was found near the town of Salikard in Russia's Tumen region. The area has long been known for its unsolved archaeological mysteries, but this time, the find went far beyond anyone's imagination. According to archaeologists, the cocoon measures about 4.3 feet in length and roughly 12 inches in width, just enough to hold a small body. It was lined with a thin layer of metal on the inside and wrapped in birch bark on the outside, all buried deep beneath layers of ice for centuries. Everything about it points to a completely unusual burial method. Unlike traditional practices we're familiar with, no wooden coffins, no pyramids, no stone tombs, this burial used metal and bark as if to seal the body against time itself. And in doing so, it unintentionally created a miracle. The body was preserved almost intact for centuries. The leader of the excavation, Alexander Gusev, made a statement that immediately sparked curiosity. It is very likely that this is a mummy, and its condition may be remarkably well preserved. He even suggested that the remains inside could belong to a child, or a teenager. Yes, a child buried beneath frozen ground for more than 800 years. Can you feel how haunting this story is becoming? But the question that puzzled scientists the most was, who was this child? To find the answer, researchers began what seemed like an almost impossible journey. Trying to locate the child's family after more than 800 years, they conducted DNA testing, comparing the results with indigenous Siberian groups such as the Khanty and Nenets, as well as isolated communities living near Lake Muji. Their goal was to determine whether anyone in the modern world might share the same bloodline. Professor Peter Slaminsky of the Moscow Institute of Molecular Genetics explained that they would first analyze mitochondrial DNA to trace the maternal lineage, then examine nuclear DNA to determine the paternal origin, a highly complex and challenging process. Over time, human populations have mixed extensively, making it far more difficult to trace ancient ancestry. And that's not all. Scientists from South Korea also joined the project to reconstruct the boy's face. But this task was anything but easy. His facial bones were not fully developed and had been deformed after centuries underground. Researchers had to use CT scanning technology to digitally reconstruct the skull, then rebuild the face detail by detail. Think about it. A child from the Middle Ages is slowly being brought back to life in the modern world. Fascinating, isn't it? However, to complete that journey and uncover the boy's identity, scientists must invest an enormous amount of time and effort into research and analysis. And during that process, they discovered something quite thought-provoking. The boy showed signs of parasitic worm infection, suggesting that his diet may have included raw or undercooked fish. This reflects aspects of life at the time, when consuming raw food was relatively common, especially among children. In fact, infants may even have been given raw meat to suck on. It sounds unbelievable, but that was the reality hundreds of years ago. Additionally, the orientation of the burials is highly unusual. All the bodies were positioned with their feet pointing toward the Gorny Poli River, as if it held some spiritual significance, perhaps a belief about the afterlife, or a ritual we have yet to fully understand. Notably, archaeologists didn't just find mummies. They also uncovered valuable artifacts such as bronze bowls of Persian origin, iron combat knives, and silver medallions dating back to the 7th or 9th century. These items suggest that the civilization once living here was not isolated, but instead had far-reaching connections with distant regions. An Arctic civilization bearing Persian influences? Hard to believe, isn't it? What's even more remarkable is that these mummies were not intentionally created. There was no embalming process like in ancient Egypt. Instead, their preservation was the result of a unique combination of metal, extreme cold, and a bit of natural luck. The copper layer helped prevent oxidation, and the global cooling during the 14th century inadvertently turned this place into a rare natural storage site for mummies. In fact, it's so unique that a scientist named Natalia Fyodorova once remarked that nowhere else in the world, outside of permafrost regions or peat bogs, has yielded such a concentration of naturally preserved mummies like this site. And now, that birch bark cocoon may be the final piece of the puzzle. A child, a mysterious civilization, and a journey spanning centuries, all waiting to be revealed. So until scientists finally uncover the true identity of this child, let's wait together for the answer. Mysterious set of remains found beside the mummy of a renowned bishop in Europe. A coffin had rested undisturbed for more than 3 centuries. No suspicion, no questions. And yet, with just a single examination using modern technology, every secret hidden inside was suddenly brought to light. This is the story of what happened in the city of Lund, in southern Sweden, a place where an ancient crypt lies beneath a grand cathedral. Inside it rests the body of Peter Winstrup, a prominent 17th century bishop. You see, for 336 years, the bishop's remains lay quietly in his coffin. It was believed to be one of the best preserved mummies in Europe at the time, and that belief was well-founded. Despite the passage of centuries, his clothing remained intact. His face was still clearly recognizable, to the point that when compared with historical portraits, there was almost no difference. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say his body seemed nearly frozen in time. But then, everything changed. When scientists decided to use CT scanning technology to examine the inside of the coffin, their initial goal was quite simple: to learn more about the bishop's life and the social conditions of 17th century Sweden. However, what they discovered was far from expected. Inside the coffin, there was not only the bishop's body, but also a human fetus. Further analysis revealed that it was approximately 5 to 6 months old, meaning it was a premature child who had never had the chance to be born. What puzzled scientists wasn't just its presence, but the question, why was it inside the coffin of a bishop? Per Karsten, director of the Historical Museum at Lund University, openly admitted that they had never anticipated such a finding. Over the years, the coffin had even been opened before, yet no one had ever noticed the fetus. It had been hidden so carefully, almost as if it were a secret deliberately buried. So what connection could there possibly be between these two individuals? To answer that, researchers began planning DNA tests, but early assessments suggest that the child was most likely not biologically related to the bishop. And this is where the story takes on a more human, almost unsettling dimension. One theory suggests that the fetus may have been the illegitimate child of someone in that society. When it died, people may have taken advantage of the bishop's formal funeral to secretly place the child's body inside his coffin, a way of hiding it where no one would dare to question. It may sound simple, but if true, it reveals a great deal about the society of that time: honor, religion, and the kinds of secrets people were willing to carry with them to the grave. Chilling, isn't it? Of course, this remains only a theory. Nothing has been definitively proven. Returning to the central figure, Peter Winstrup, he was far more than just a bishop. In his lifetime, he was a respected scholar, a scientist, a collector, and a theologian. Most notably, he was one of the founders of Lund University in 1666, an institution that still ranks among the top 100 universities in the world today. A man of great influence, yet even in death, he continues to be at the center of an unsolved mystery. Modern research has also revealed that during his life, Winstrup may have suffered from multiple illnesses at once: pneumonia, gout, arthritis, gallstones, and even tuberculosis. A body marked by the toll of time, yet preserved in near-perfect condition after death. And amid all of this, the presence of a tiny fetus only deepens the mystery. A renowned bishop, an unborn child. Two lives lying side by side in silence for more than 300 years. What do you think? Is this merely a coincidence or a secret that history has intentionally kept hidden? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. 210-million-year-old footprints imprinted in stone that challenge the history of evolution. You know, there are times when science seems to have all the answers firmly in hand, but just one small discovery can turn everything upside down. And the story of these 210-million-year-old footprints preserved in stone is a perfect example of that. In fact, it left the entire scientific community stunned. The story takes place in Africa, where a research team from the University of Cape Town was surveying ancient fossil layers. During their work, they discovered footprints embedded in rock dating back as far as 210 million years. At first, that might not sound unusual. Fossils that old aren't exactly rare, but what shocked them was the shape of these footprints. At a glance, they look almost identical to the footprints of birds. Now think about that for a moment. Does that make sense? Of course not, right? Because according to what science has established so far, birds, or at least their closest ancestors, only appeared around 150 million years ago. That's about 60 million years later than these footprints. In other words, these footprints appeared before their supposed owners even existed. And that's where things become incredibly puzzling. It didn't stop at just a few isolated samples. The research team collected fossils from 4 different sites within the same region. After careful analysis, they realized there were actually 2 completely distinct types of footprints. The first type is larger, with broad feet and long toes that are positioned close together. This type is still somewhat explainable. Scientists believe it closely resembles a known fossil footprint called Anomoepus, which is thought to have been left by a dinosaur. So for this type, everything still falls within the boundaries of established knowledge. But the second type, that's where things start to feel unfamiliar. These footprints are smaller, about half the size of the first type. The toes are more slender, clearly separated, and most striking of all, their overall shape closely resembles the footprints of modern birds, almost unbelievably so. Not just a vague similarity, but enough to make people seriously wonder, could these actually be bird footprints? But if they are, then where did these birds come from? That question is exactly what has scientists scratching their heads. At this point, there is still no definitive answer. However, several hypotheses have been proposed. One possibility is that these are the footprints of a 3-toed dinosaur, a group of ancient creatures believed to be related to both modern birds and crocodiles. If that hypothesis is correct, it could mean that bird-like characteristics began to appear much earlier than we previously thought, long before birds officially emerged as a distinct group. Put simply, evolution may have been quietly experimenting with bird-like traits tens of millions of years earlier, gradually refining them over time. Another possibility is that our current understanding of the evolutionary tree is still incomplete. There may be many undiscovered branches, many transitional species we have yet to find, and these footprints could be one of the few remaining clues. You see, just a few footprints can raise a cascade of profound questions. They're not merely traces of a creature that once walked the earth. They are evidence that the history of life on this planet may be far more complex than we ever imagined. Scientists believe this discovery could open up an entirely new direction of research. It may help us better visualize how animals lived hundreds of millions of years ago, how they moved, adapted, and evolved. More importantly, it forces us to rethink the origins of birds, one of the most familiar groups of animals today. Who knows? The birds you see every day may have a history far older and far more mysterious than anything we've ever been taught. And perhaps, beneath those ancient layers of rock, there are still more footprints lying in silence, waiting to be discovered, ready to continue telling the unfinished story of our planet. It's entirely possible, isn't it? The Death Pit, containing 6,770 animal skeletons, revealing a terrifying prehistoric sacrificial ritual. There are discoveries that send a chill down your spine at first glance, not because they are incredibly ancient, but because what they reveal is so difficult to explain. And this time, the story begins with a pit that, when excavated, was found to contain as many as 6,770 animal skeletons. Just hearing that number already feels unsettling, doesn't it? This site is located in southwestern Spain, at an archaeological complex known as Casas del Turuñuelo. At first, researchers had no idea they were about to encounter one of the most shocking discoveries related to ancient rituals. But as each layer of soil was removed, and as more skeletons came into view, everything began to change. It wasn't just a few dozen, or even a few hundred, but thousands of skeletons piled on top of each other within a single pit. What's even more striking is that they didn't all belong to one species. After analysis, scientists identified at least 52 different animal species. Among them were 41 horses, 4 pigs, 6 types of livestock, and even a dog. An astonishing diversity, but also deeply haunting. So think about it. What could have caused so many animals to be killed and buried in one place? At first, possibilities like disease or natural disaster came to mind, but those theories were quickly ruled out. Most of the animals appeared to have been fully grown and healthy before death. There were no signs of illness or weakness. So what was the real reason? The marks on the bones told the story. Most of the animals showed clear signs of butchering, as if they had been slaughtered for meat before being buried. This led researchers to believe that this was not simply a burial site, but possibly the remains of a massive feast, part of a large-scale sacrificial ritual carried out by people of that time. A feast, but one infused with the meaning of offering. This theory became even more convincing when researchers examined how the bodies were arranged. The horses in particular were not randomly discarded. They were placed in pairs. This suggests they may have been working animals, used for pulling carts or carrying goods, and likely held significant value in that society. In other words, they were not chosen at random, but deliberately selected. And that's not all. Around the pit, traces of burned plant material were also discovered. These remains suggest that the animals may have been burned as part of the ritual, similar to how offerings were presented to deities in many ancient cultures. Sound familiar? Throughout history and mythology, animal sacrifice is nothing new. For example, in the Odyssey, King Nestor is said to have sacrificed as many as 81 bulls to honor the gods. In Greek mythology, Peleus, the father of Achilles, also sacrificed 50 black sheep, praying for his son's safe return from war. But those are stories from texts and legends. In reality, it is extremely rare to find archaeological evidence of animal sacrifice on such a massive scale. And that's exactly why the bone pit at Casas del Turuñuelo is so extraordinary. It is not just an archaeological discovery, it is a gateway into the spiritual world of prehistoric people, where belief, ritual, and sacrifice may have gone far beyond what we can imagine today. Think about it. What could drive people to kill thousands of healthy animals? Was it fear of nature? Absolute faith in the gods? Or a ritual so ancient that we can no longer understand it? The more we try to uncover the truth, the more elusive it becomes. And perhaps those silent skeletons, lying undisturbed for thousands of years, are still waiting for us to finally unravel the true story behind this death pit. 1,200-year-old mansion in the Negev Desert. In the middle of a barren desert, where sand and wind seem to swallow nearly every trace of time, there exists a secret no one expected. It's not a simple hut, nor just ordinary ruins, but an entire luxurious mansion that once belonged to a powerful figure more than 1,200 years ago. Yes, you heard that right. A mansion. This story takes place in the Negev Desert in southern Israel, near a Bedouin town. When archaeologists first began excavating the area, they had no idea they were about to uncover a structure that could reshape our understanding of life in such a harsh ancient environment. Then, layer by layer, the sand was cleared away. A structure slowly emerged. Not small, not temporary, but a true mansion. According to the Israel Antiquities Authority, it was described as a luxurious rural estate, a phrase that alone gives you a sense of the wealth of its former owner. Inside, there were marble-paved corridors and walls decorated with intricate frescoes, details typically found in major cities, not in the middle of a desert. The house has been dated to around the 8th to 9th century, during the early Islamic period. Its architectural design is also remarkable. Rooms built with vaulted ceilings arranged around a central courtyard, a layout that both helped cool the space and created a shared living area. But it's not just the appearance that stands out. What was found inside is even more striking. Archaeologists discovered remains of oil lamps, once used to light the entire mansion at night. There were also underground storage rooms, along with a large water reservoir. In desert conditions, having such a water supply wasn't just a convenience, it was a clear sign of power and wealth. Not everyone could build such a complex system. Because of this, researchers believe the person who once lived here was no ordinary individual. Most likely, it was a local ruler, a figure of high status, capable of transforming a harsh landscape into a comfortable residence, perhaps even using it for hosting and entertainment. Simply put, this wasn't just a home, it was a symbol of power. What makes this discovery even more fascinating is that, before it was revealed, almost no one knew that such luxurious structures had ever existed in the Negev. The region has long been considered dry and underdeveloped in the past, but this mansion proves the opposite. People once lived here in remarkable comfort, right in a place that seems almost uninhabitable. And there's more. The mansion is located near an ancient mosque, another rare discovery previously announced by Israeli archaeologists. This suggests that the area was once a well-developed community, with organization, cultural life, and clear religious practices. Not just a temporary stop, but a place that once held real significance. Now, after completing the excavation, scientists are planning to preserve the entire mansion complex along with its related structures. Because they understand that this is not just a ruin, it's an important piece of the historical puzzle of the entire region. You see, sometimes history isn't found in famous or crowded places. Instead, it hides in the most unexpected locations, like these dry, overlooked lands. Strange yet incredibly fascinating, isn't it? "2,000-year-old air conditioning system of the ancient Romans." This discovery comes from an ancient settlement called Cambadunum, located in present-day Bavaria, Germany. When archaeologists excavated the site, they uncovered a villa that left everyone astonished, not because of its size, but because of what lay beneath it, an incredibly sophisticated ancient climate control system. According to research, Cambadunum was once one of the oldest urban centers in Germany, established during the Roman Empire as it expanded across Europe. And although the Romans are often remembered as conquerors, they also left behind an extraordinary legacy of engineering. This villa is a perfect example. The structure spans approximately 8,600 square feet, has 2 stories, and was equipped with a range of features that could be considered high-tech for its time. But as mentioned earlier, the most remarkable feature lies beneath the floor: a massive and intelligently designed heating system. The ancient builders constructed rows of small pillars to raise the floor, creating 2 separate layers. The space in between allowed hot air to circulate throughout the rooms. From a central furnace, heat was distributed through channels, spreading evenly across the entire house. Simply put, this was an early form of underfloor heating, the same concept still used in many modern European homes today. Not only did it keep the living space warm, but it also provided heat for hot bathing pools. This meant the villa's owner could relax in warm water even during freezing winter days. A lifestyle that feels incredibly advanced for 2,000 years ago, right? But that's not all. Researchers from the Cambadunum Archaeological Park also discovered many valuable artifacts inside the villa. Most notable were the Roman mosaics, crafted from small stones imported from various regions and assembled into highly intricate images. Each mosaic was not just art, it was a symbol of wealth. Clearly, the person who lived in this villa was no ordinary individual. It must have been someone of high status, with enough power and financial resources to afford comforts far beyond their time. Not long before this, archaeologists in the city of Pompeii, Italy, also uncovered similar systems. The city was buried after the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD, which unintentionally preserved an entire civilization in remarkable detail. There, researchers found complete water supply and drainage systems, large-scale public baths, intelligently designed stone-paved streets, and even food counters resembling modern-day takeout services. It almost sounds like a 21st century city. All of this points to a very clear truth. The technological level of ancient Rome was astonishingly advanced. They didn't just build grand structures, they also knew how to improve quality of life in ways that many other civilizations wouldn't achieve until thousands of years later. And now, as ruins like those at Cambadunum continue to be revealed, we're beginning to understand that the past was never as primitive as we once believed. In fact, there may still be many ancient technologies lying hidden beneath the earth, waiting to be discovered, ready to make us rethink history from an entirely new perspective. What do you think? The 11.2-foot metal monolith that appeared and disappeared in Utah, a mystery that confused the world. You know, our world has a very unique way of being mysterious. Some things appear in broad daylight right before our eyes, yet when we look again, they vanish as if they never existed. And the story of the metal monolith in the Utah desert is one of those strange cases. It all began on November 18, 2020. At the time, local officials were flying over a remote area in Utah, counting sheep from the air. It seemed like a routine task, until they looked down and spotted something that clearly didn't belong there. A shiny metal pillar stood upright in the middle of the desert. Amid the dry red rocks, the structure reflected sunlight so brightly that it stood out in a surreal way. From above, it looked like an object that had been planted into the ground, with no natural explanation for its presence. When they got closer, experts confirmed that the structure was about 11.2 feet tall, made of stainless steel with a smooth, reflective surface that showed almost no signs of corrosion from the environment. Think about it, in such a remote desert, who could have transported something that large and installed it there? Before that question could even be answered, something even more puzzling happened. Just a few days after it was discovered, the monolith suddenly disappeared. No trace, no announcement, no one claimed responsibility. Just like the way it appeared, sudden and mysterious, its disappearance was exactly the same. Authorities in Utah quickly launched an investigation, and according to a report from the Bureau of Land Management, the structure was removed on the evening of November 27th. However, the strange part is that no one knows exactly who did it. More importantly, officials confirmed that they were not responsible for removing it. The reason they gave was that it might have been private property, so they chose not to interfere. So who took it away? That question quickly captured public attention. According to experts, transporting and installing a metal structure over 11 feet tall in the middle of a desert is no simple task. It requires manpower, equipment, and time, and certainly couldn't have been done so quietly that no one noticed. Yet from beginning to end, there has been no clear evidence of how it was done. Because of this, countless theories began to emerge. Some believe it was simply an unauthorized art installation, created to attract attention. That makes some sense, as the monolith's design resembles modern symbolic artworks. But then again, if it was art, why was it removed so quickly? And why has no one come forward to claim it? The more you think about it, the stranger it gets. And so, more far-reaching theories began to surface. Some people believe it could have been the work of extraterrestrials. They argue that with technology far beyond human capability, placing a metal structure on Earth and later removing it would be entirely possible. It sounds like science fiction, but you know how it is. When there's no clear explanation, people start considering every possibility. Whether it was art, a prank, or something beyond our understanding, to this day, no one has been able to provide a definitive answer. The monolith appeared, captured the world's attention, and then vanished, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions. So what do you think? Who put it there in the middle of the desert? And who took it away? Leave your thoughts in the comments below if you have any ideas about this mystery. A river of mercury, hidden beneath a Maya pyramid. The story began in 2003 after a sudden heavy rainstorm swept across Teotihuacan. Archaeologist Sergio Gomez Chavez arrived to inspect the area and accidentally discovered a small sinkhole right in front of the Temple of the Feathered Serpent. When he shined a flashlight into it, he saw nothing but thick darkness, but his instincts told him he was standing before something significant. With a rope tied around his waist and the help of his team, Gomez was lowered into the hole, which led to a mysterious tunnel that had been sealed for nearly 1,800 years. With support from Mexico's National Institute of Anthropology and History, he began planning a full excavation. After years of meticulous work, using ground-penetrating radar, 3D scanning, and remotely operated robotic vehicles, the team removed more than 1,100 tons of soil from a tunnel approximately 328 feet long. What they uncovered was astonishing. Not only did they find tens of thousands of ancient artifacts, such as jade figurines, crocodile teeth, jade masks, and jaguar bones, but they also discovered something that shocked the world: pools of liquid mercury resting in the final chamber of the tunnel. Mercury, a highly toxic liquid metal, was not only dangerous but extremely rare in ancient times. According to experts, the ancient Maya extracted mercury from cinnabar, a rare red ore that was difficult to mine. So why would they go to such lengths just to bring this toxic substance deep underground? Some archaeologists believe that the mercury symbolized a supernatural river, one that guided souls into the afterlife. It may have marked the entrance to a royal tomb, possibly the first burial site of Teotihuacan's rulers, a resting place that, to this day, has never been definitively found. And it doesn't stop there. The ceiling of the tunnel also contained traces of metallic powder that shimmered like stars in the darkness. Researchers believe the entire journey through the tunnel may have been designed as a ritual reenactment of the passage to the afterlife, where the soul must cross a sacred river to reach the realm of the gods. The dense concentration of artifacts around the final 3 chambers further supports the theory that this site may have once served as a high-status or royal burial complex. As of now, the Mercury River, beneath the Pyramid of Quetzalcoatl, remains an unsolved mystery. But one thing is certain: nowhere else in ancient Mesoamerica has such a large quantity of mercury ever been discovered. Its existence has opened up a wide range of theories about belief systems, power, and funerary rituals within the Teotihuacan civilization. If we say that this site is not just an archaeological ruin, but an unfinished history book, where every layer of earth reveals a new story about humanity, mythology, and secrets buried for thousands of years, that would not be an exaggeration at all. The red-haired pharaoh mummy and the strangest passport in history. In the barren desert of the Valley of the Kings, where some of the greatest secrets of ancient Egyptian civilization were buried, archaeologists in 1881 stumbled upon a discovery that stunned the world. It wasn't gold or treasure. It was a remarkable tomb that, when opened, revealed a nearly intact mummy with striking red hair alongside numerous valuable artifacts. A mummy with bright red hair. Just hearing that already sounds unusual, doesn't it? Because in most people's minds, ancient Egyptians are typically associated with dark or black hair. Yet here, before their eyes, lay a body with vivid red hair, as if it held a story yet to be told. As the artifacts in the tomb were carefully analyzed, the identity of the individual gradually came to light. It was Ramesses II, the greatest pharaoh in Egyptian history, also known as Ramesses the Great. He was born around 1302 BC, ascended the throne after the death of his father, Seti I, and ruled for an astonishing 66 years, a nearly unimaginable length of time in the ancient world. Think about it. 66 years of rule in an era filled with conflict, war, and power struggles. That alone proves he was no ordinary king. By the time of his death in 1213 BC, he was nearly 90 years old, an incredible age for that period. It's even said that he had more than 100 children. However, to be honest, researchers have yet to find definitive evidence to confirm that claim. Still, what history does record is more than enough to make the name Ramesses II legendary. But what truly left experts stunned wasn't his power or longevity, it was his unusual red hair. In ancient Egyptian culture, red hair was more than just a physical trait. It was believed to be associated with Seth, the god of chaos, the desert, and untamed power. So the question arises, was this merely a coincidence, or did Ramesses II carry a deeper symbolic connection? And the story doesn't end there. After being discovered, his mummy was preserved and displayed at the Egyptian Museum starting in 1885. But nearly a century later, in 1974, scientists discovered that the body was being attacked by fungus and was at risk of severe deterioration. At that point, an unprecedented decision was made. The mummy would be sent to France for preservation treatment. That might sound ordinary, but here's the catch. According to Egyptian law, even the deceased require proper documentation to travel abroad. And so, something truly unbelievable happened. Ramesses II's mummy was issued a passport. Yes, you heard that correctly. A king who had died thousands of years ago was granted an official passport, complete with a photograph of the mummy's face and an occupation listed as King Deceased. It became the first mummy in world history to receive such an extraordinary privilege. When the mummy arrived in France, it was even welcomed with full honors befitting a head of state. After examination and treatment, the body was successfully preserved and returned to Egypt, where it continues to rest in a most extraordinary way. Hearing this, doesn't it give you chills? A ruler who lived more than 3,000 years ago with mysterious red hair, a mummy that once held a passport, and a journey across borders that no one could have imagined. What does all of this tell us? Perhaps that history is not just a collection of dry facts and dates, but a tapestry of strange, fascinating details, so unusual that they make us see the past in a completely different way. 2,000-year-old stone slab, depicting a Roman emperor as an Egyptian pharaoh. Have you ever imagined that a Roman emperor, a symbol of Western power, could appear in the form of an ancient Egyptian pharaoh? It sounds a bit out of place, doesn't it? But history records exactly such a case, and the evidence lies on a stone slab more than 2,000 years old. The story begins when archaeologists were working at the Karnak Temple complex, one of the largest and oldest religious sites in the world, located in Luxor, Egypt. During restoration work at the site, they unexpectedly discovered a rectangular sandstone slab, also known as a stela. The slab isn't particularly large, only about 24 by 16 inches, but what is carved on it made researchers stop and think. On its surface is the image of Tiberius, a well-known Roman emperor, but not in his familiar Roman attire. Instead, he is depicted exactly like an Egyptian pharaoh, performing rituals before the gods. A strangely familiar yet unusual image, right? To understand it more clearly, we need to look at the historical context of the time. When Tiberius ascended to the throne in 14 AD, Egypt had already been a province of the Roman Empire for about 44 years. In other words, although it was under Roman rule, the region still preserved its long-standing cultural and religious traditions. And that's the key point. According to Egyptologist Abdel Ghaffar Wagdi, who led the research team, anyone who ruled Egypt at that time had to uphold Ma'at, a fundamental concept in ancient Egyptian belief representing cosmic order, balance, and justice. But to do that, they couldn't act merely as a typical Roman emperor. They had to become a pharaoh. That's why, on this slab, Tiberius is shown standing before three major Egyptian deities, Amun, Mut, and Khonsu. These gods were widely worshipped in Luxor, and appearing alongside them carried deep significance. It shows that Tiberius was not just a distant ruler, but someone legitimized within the local belief system. In other words, he had to take on the role of a pharaoh in order to be accepted by both the gods and the people. Sounds like a clever adaptation, doesn't it? In fact, Roman emperors being depicted in Egyptian style was not uncommon, especially in religious contexts. However, what's interesting is that outside of temple carvings and stelae like this, they still maintain their Roman identity on coins and official statues. One person, two identities. One for the Roman Empire and one for the people of Egypt. Researcher Wagdi believes this slab is not just a piece of art, but a reflection of an entire system of thought and governance at the time. In that system, emperors were portrayed as builders and protectors of temples, whether or not they actually performed those roles in reality. What mattered wasn't necessarily what they did, but how they were represented. Additionally, the slab may once have been mounted on an outer wall of the temple, serving as an architectural marker to commemorate the restoration of part of the Karnak complex. You see, just a single stone slab can contain an entire story about power, religion, and how humans adapt to one another's cultures. Fascinating, isn't it? 2,200-year-old iPhone found in an ancient tomb in Russia. If I told you that archaeologists excavated an ancient tomb, opened it, and found something that looked exactly like an iPhone, how would you react? Hard to believe, right? But this actually happened in 2016, in a remote area deep within the Tuva Mountains, a federal subject of Russia near the Mongolian border. On that day, as an archaeological team was carefully excavating at the ancient Alatay burial site, they unexpectedly discovered the grave of a woman. With no confirmed identity, they gave her the nickname Natasha, a name that feels both familiar and brings the story to life. But what left everyone stunned wasn't the skeleton itself. It was a strange object lying right beside her. A rectangular item, about 7 by 3.5 inches, grayish-black in color, and remarkably similar in appearance to a modern smartphone. At first glance, it looked just like an iPhone, and that's how the name Natasha's iPhone was born. But as you know, the iPhone didn't appear until 2007. So how could something that looks so similar be found in a tomb that's thousands of years old? That question quickly stirred excitement among researchers. Some even entertained bold time travel theories. However, as experts began to analyze the object more carefully, the truth slowly came to light. No less fascinating. Based on Wuchu coins found in the tomb, they determined that the object dates back around 2,200 years to the time of the Xiongnu. It was crafted from black stone and decorated with turquoise, carnelian, and mother-of-pearl, details that suggest its owner was far from ordinary. In the end, archaeologists concluded that this so-called ancient iPhone was actually just a belt buckle. It may sound simple, but imagine living in that time, long before modern technology, and encountering an object with such a strikingly modern design. It's enough to send chills down your spine. As it turns out, more than 2,000 years ago, nomadic women wore belts with large stone buckles, not only as decoration, but also as symbols of status. According to Dr. Pavel Leos, the head of the excavation team, this is one of the most fascinating discoveries in the region. And the story doesn't stop with just an ancient iPhone. The Alatay site has even been nicknamed the Atlantis of Russia because it lies beneath a massive reservoir formed by the Sayano-Shushenskaya hydroelectric dam. The reservoir spans over 240 square miles. But what makes it unique is that during the summer, water levels drop, revealing a dry, desert-like landscape where scientists have a brief window to uncover secrets buried for thousands of years. In this area alone, as many as 110 ancient graves emerge on these temporary islands when the water recedes. Nearby, the Terezin site contains at least 32 more graves. Some of these tombs lie as deep as 56 feet underwater, as if history itself were trying to hide from the modern world. And Natasha is far from the only discovery. Previously, archaeologists uncovered a skeleton known as the Sleeping Beauty, named for the woman buried in a beautifully preserved silk garment. At first, they believed she was a priestess, but after analyzing the tools buried with her, they realized she was actually a leather designer, a highly skilled craftsperson of her time. Another skeleton belonged to a weaver, buried alongside her loom, as if she had carried her entire life with her into the afterlife. All of this has turned the region into a vast historical treasure, spanning from the Bronze Age all the way to the era of Genghis Khan. And now, back to the original question. If you were the first person to see that 2,200-year-old iPhone, would you trust science? Or would you start to wonder whether humanity's past still holds mysteries far beyond our imagination? You see, the ancient world is truly fascinating, isn't it? From objects that seem like they traveled through time, to mysterious skeletons and legendary mummies, to artifacts that appear and then disappear in ways we can't quite explain. Together, they create a vast and deeply mysterious archaeological picture. So, which discovery impressed you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss any future discoveries from ancient history. For now, goodbye, and see you next time.